time, we want to welcome you to Focus on Liberia. Welcome, welcome. And it is our pleasure to say to you, welcome to our broadcast here at Focus on Liberia. Today is Saturday, and we got a very special debate. It's one of the debates you're like, okay, where do I stand? But we got people who have taken their side on the issue. And Focus on Liberia will gladly ask you to hit that share button quickly because we are beyond schedule here and we want to get down to business right away. I'm Anthony here, hosting along with Mr. Dennis Ja. For continuation of the broadcast, I will turn control over to Mr. Ja. Mr. Ja, I'm ready.
Thank you, Mr. Sear, and I'm in top gear to start the show. We want to say welcome across the globe. This is Focus on Liberia. We are broadcasting from the headquarters of Focus on Liberia, that's in Atlanta, Georgia. Tonight, we're going to be having a debate on the renaming of Monrovia, the capital of Liberia. Should Monrovia be renamed? Should the name Monrovia be changed or not? We have some distinguished personalities who are on both sides of the argument, and they will be presenting their sides. We want to welcome all of you. And gentlemen, welcome to Focus on Liberia. I want to start with Mr. Prince Williams, who is joining us for the first time on Focus on Liberia. Prince, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ja. Thanks so much for the Focus on Liberia family, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Also joining us for the first time is Mr. Emmanuel Woods. Mr. Woods, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ja, for this platform and all the contribution you have done for Liberia. And I hope you continue that. May God bless you and your family. Thank you.
Thank you. Joining us also, not for the first time, but probably his second or third time, is Mr. Joe Williamson. Joe, welcome to Focus on Liberia. All right, there are some technical issues there. So tonight is a debate. I just wanted to welcome those joining us for the first time. We have people on one side or the other of this debate. There are those who think that Monrovia, the name Monrovia, should be changed. And representing that group is my man, Vasiki Kone, who's going to introduce himself and members of his team. Mr. Kone.
Hey, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Vasiki Kone. I'm a proponent for the change of the name of Monrovia to Duco its original name. So with me here tonight, I have Mr. Prince William, and I have Brother Emmanuel Wood. Professor Zaure is going to join us later on. And I believe that we have a very strong team here to debate with our opponent here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Kone. Representing those who do not want the name Monrovia to be changed is Mr. James Laza and team. So, Mr. Laza, please introduce yourself and your teammates.
Good evening, Dennis and Ansoni. I'm glad to be here today. I'm also joined by my colleagues, Joel Williamson and and I think that's it for now.
Yeah, right. Percy will be joining you later, right? He said.
Yeah. And Percy Harris, who should be joining us later. And we are glad to be here.
All right. And we want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. We want you to be part of the discussion. We're going to be posting our phone line very soon, but not until we have heard from our debaters. So the format tonight will have one side presenting, for instance, those who are for the name change, giving us reason. We have two persons from that side giving us reason why the name Monrovia should be changed. So we'll have two persons each talking for maximum 3 minutes to start why the name Monrovia should be changed. After that, we'll have two persons from the against side to tell us why the name Monrovia should not be changed. So we did a coin toss, and at this time, those who are for the name change will start. But before we do that, I want to take it back to my man, Asuni Sear. Mr. Sear, are you ready to rock and roll?
Mr. Ja, for rock and roll, that is the business we're in here when it comes to the conversation. I'm more than ready. And again, folks in cyberspace, If you have not hit that share button there, we will want to ask you to do so. George Lobo, if you are there, hit that share button. Anybody who's watching, we are happy to be here. This is Focus on Liberia. If you talk about debate, that's the business we do. To our debaters tonight, we want you to know that you are here not only to represent yourself, but to represent Liberia intellectually on the issues. And we want to say, we think you can do that for us. To get the ball rolling, we will start with the team that is for the name of Monrovia to be changed, and that team is held by Vasiki Kone. Mr. Kone, we will ask you to make your case why you think this name Monrovia should be changed.
All right. Good to hear that, and good evening to everyone. My opening statement here is that.
Yeah, how you doing? How you doing?
Good. All right. In any situation, if you are a stranger in a town, you don't change the name of that place to suit you. That would be considered very disrespectful to the people you met there.
Okay.
So when our brothers and sisters came from the United States of America and to Africa, it was a good thing if it was something they themselves desire. So coming here, and they were welcomed by their brothers and sister Africans, they should have liaised with those people to build a nation that everybody was to be considered equal, and at least consider the name. Ask the people, how do you call this place? And let the people say, we'll call it Duba or Duko. Okay, it's a great thing. We come here and we're going to maintain that name. But no, that was not the case, because it was against the period of colonialism where you had white supremacy ruling everywhere. They thought they had the right to go anywhere and change anything to their own liking. So they could kill people. Like, for example, in America, they came and wiped out the Native American and gave it their own name. So the people that went to Liberia, they didn't go there with constructive African conscious mind. They went there with the same white supremacy ideology, and they decided to give their own name to it. They didn't give a damn what it was called before. That's point number one. Point number two, the man who Monrovia is named after was a slave master. He owns slaves, bunch of slaves. And of course, any man that decides to own another person, no matter how you put it, his intention is never good. God created all of us equal. And when they were formulating the United States Constitution, it was said that all men are created equal. So it's a contradiction on their part that the very people that were signing that document to say all men are created equal, they were violating the civil right, the human right of other human beings. So by owning those people, it was not a good thing. And they did not change their mind to say slavery was wrong. They kept maintaining that philosophy, that mentality throughout. Okay, number three, the ACS formation, it was not done as a beneficial relationship with our brothers and sisters that were sent over here. ACS was formed with the sole intent to get rid of, quote unquote, useless and pernicious Black people. They had no use for them. They had no value for them. They had no respect for them. They say, we are too good to have these people roaming around. So the best thing that can happen, send them to Africa. That's the original homeland. Because in Africa, you have a bunch of ignoramus, you have a bunch of barbarians. So we will send these people to go and bring civilization to those ignorant and barbaric Africans.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. We want to go to your next, also on the far side to give reasons. So we'll have two persons on each side to give us their opening. So let's go to anyone on your team to tell us reason why, without repeating those reasons that you listed, reason why Monrovia should be renamed. Would that be Prince or Emmanuel?
Well, if Prince cannot, Prince, are you going to speak?
Yes, I will take the opportunity to go out and to speak. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, comrade.
If you permit me.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, thank you all so much. I'm glad to be part of this, what I term as august discussion, because anything that has to do with national issues is very important and it should be discussed rather than quarrel over. Well, I am for the change of the name. Well, not necessarily the change, but I say the reverting of the name to its original name. Now, I'll ask a question. Most often we forget to know that what's in a name. What is in a name? What does a name say about a person? What does that name tell you about that person or the place or location? Now, we all know that Liberia as a country struggled through its formation. At the early stage of Liberia formation, Liberia were in what we call a Commonwealth Agreement. It was in a Commonwealth Agreement within the American Colonization Society, whereas different states and different localities in the United States who had the philosophy, well, the philosophy of non-coexistence, let me stress that. When I mean philosophy of non-coexistence, that had the notion that a black man, a black free man is a 3/5 human being, and therefore he is not allowed to coexist with a white man. So the American Colonization Society was founded on the principle, on the philosophy of white supremacy. Well, on that backdrop, our founding father also seized the opportunity because they felt that if they cannot be free in America, they'd rather be free somewhere else. So they seized the opportunity and they ride on that wave, and they came to the United States, to where we call today Liberia. Now, the name change Liberia happened. It took place in 1824. Why do I want you to write that date down, 1824? Because the individual that is being named after, James Monroe, was president of the United States up to the period of 1825. He left office in 1825. And the reason as to why our ancestor named Liberia after him was a sign of pilgrimage. Now, who is James Monroe? James Monroe is a slave master. Now, if you don't know what who a slave master is, I need you to do a little bit of research in history. A slave master is the one who abuses, subjects a human being to sex degradation to the point that that human being, in his eye or her eye, is seen as subhuman. And we know the history of the slavery and segregation in the United States. Now, fast forward to our contemporary time. You may want to ask, why now? Why do we change Liberia to, why should we revert the name back to its original name? Now, what was the original name? There are two names that is associated with that particular locality. One is Duko, the traditional name that is known by the people who settled there. Two, our founding father, when they came as settlers, because of the grace of God upon them, they named that particular location that they landed as Crestopolis. And in 1824, they changed that to James Monroe because Mr. Monroe handed them a little voice, and for what purpose and what reason? First, I want us to know that it was done in a desperation. Now, I may not have enough time to go over that.
Yeah, thank you. You've gone over your time.
Thank you, sir.
3 minutes.
I'll just the rest of my time behind me.
Thank you. So at this time, we will go to the side that against changing the name to tell us reason why. Mr. Lassa and team.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll come in and then, of course, I'll be followed by Joel. So we come here today at the call of our opponents because we feel that they have undertaken an effort that deserves the most they can be to oppose them and actually defeat their case because there are no merits, substance, none. So, first, we believe that the attempt to raise this entire issue could amount to deliberate, or if not deliberate, unintentionally deliberate or dangerous effort for our national cause, because the advocacy to change the name of our capital city, Monrovia, is nothing less than that which is controversial, divisive, and out of context. It is counterproductive and an absolute distraction from the very important national debate that we should be having on various important issues such as political decentralization, for example, so that our people can have a voice, a say in how their lives are run, so that they themselves can be involved. The TRC recommendation implementation, so that those who are responsible for the massacre of our people, for the degradation and decimation of our nation and society, can be held accountable. Not only that, they should be held accountable so that we can have a deterrence against any future occurrence. That is such issues that we should be discussing at this point in time. And of course, we have what is alarmingly, increasingly occurring every now and then in the country, which is gender-based violence. That is another issue that could be taking the place of this discussion today, so that we will be rather focused on what is rightfully the concerns of all Liberians, and also the dilapidated healthcare system that needs to be improved. These are the kinds of discussion that we should be having, instead of what I'm almost tempted to refer to as a triviality, or almost nearly irrelevant subject of having to change the name of Monrovia. So then the question arises as to why are they doing that? What is, you have to give them the benefit of that. But I have asked them various platforms, social media platforms. No one has given me any good reason, because I have open mind. If you can convince me, I will join you. Nobody has provided any good reason why they are doing this, and most particularly, why are they doing this at this particular time, a moment. Then, are there not other issues we could be discussing? They haven't said anything. So the question is, only that what they have said is that those who named the city were not the right people to name the city, or probably they were not thinking right. I mean, the argument is weak. So let me say that. For example, one key.
You're out of time, James. Okay. Let's go to your teammate. Joe, will continue.
I appreciate that, but you said you'll be giving the benefit of warning. So next time I would appreciate you do that. That's good.
Okay.
Okay. So let me just piggyback on this. I listen to people talk.
There will be time, Joe, hold on. There will be time for rebuttal. So what we want you to do in the first round is to present your case why the name should not be changed.
Well, the name should not be changed because there gives no merit to it. We have to understand our triple heritage. When we talk about Liberia history comes threefold. It's our triple heritage: the settlers, the Islam aspect, and our traditional indigenous people. When we begin to distort our history, only to appease people or to be copycats. For what reason? I heard people talking about some people to address systemic racism in America or to be part of the Black Lives Matter movement is to distort our history It doesn't even make sense. And the reason why Liberia was changed to Christopoli was changed to Monrovia, as I listen here, I'm not rebutting, but I have to say this, had nothing to do with the patronage of slavery. It is a disrespect to the settlers, those people who labor in plantation here, to say they name Liberia to patronize a slave master. In 1824, in the U.S. Congress, when James Monroe addressed the Congress, and what became to be known as the Monroe Doctrine was supporting emerging democracies around the world, in Latin America, Argentina, Peru, Chile. They were all coming out. So at that time when he spoke and talked about America's neutrality, that they will not tolerate colonialism or recolonization by former colonial masters of colonies in outside of America. Liberia and the settlers at that time saw an opportunity, because that statement warded off France and Great Britain and Portugal from annexing Liberia to Ivory Coast. That statement made the colony, the Commonwealth, to see a way to independence, because in that time we had Maryland 1834 being established out there. When he spoke in 1824 and changed the America's position, America's policy from his predecessors, and said they would be neutral and they would not support Great Britain or Spain on the colonial expedition. That was why Liberia seized the opportunity to thank him at that point in time. It was never to patronize, as some have said, patronize slavery. It was because of his support for emerging democracy and the establishment of Republican government across the borders of America. So the name change, is irrelevant. It's in name. To suggest that the settlers were doing this because they wanted to patronize a slave master, it's really, it's really in name, for lack of a better word. And I will give my reason why.
Okay. You're almost out of time, so you can land.
Yes. So the fact about the matter here is we need to study, look at historical facts, and somewhere in this argument, I will try to make a chronological data of this man, James Monroe, not to support him, but to see from his date of birth of 1758, and see how when people talk he's a slave master, he's a slave master. Nearly every one of our white people here in America has attachment to slave. If you go look at history, even unfortunately, the founder of Obama, the first American black president, his maternal grandparentage was slave owners.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia. Our discussion tonight is a debate, the for and against the changing of the name Monrovia. That's the nation's capital. At this time, we're going to go to the for side to give your rebuttal. And so Mr. Emmanuel Woods, who have not spoken, will give the rebuttal for the for side. I hope by that time, Percy Harris will be available to give the rebuttal for those against. Mr. Woods, you are on mute. You can unmute yourself and give your rebuttal. Go.
Well, quote this thing before going further by Malcolm X. He said, of all our studies, history is the best qualified to reward our research. And I just listen to my brother who just spoke, Williamson. The first fact of the matter is that it was not the settlers that named that place Monrovia. It was the ACS. Well, Mr. Host, you can check that out. And when the ACS named that place Monrovia, they never consulted a single black person. They named it after Monroe, after James Monroe. So it was not the settlers. Now, They name it Monrovia in honor of James Monroe. Now, people will say, well, they just name it because of what he has contributed. But how can we say that? What kind of contribution did he did for African liberation? James Monroe was a man who owned slaves. Yes. So that disqualifies him right there, in my opinion. Because if Liberia was founded on the foundation of freedom and equality, James Monroe is not a good name to name after somebody like that. It's like looking at Leopoldville in former Congo and Zaire. When the brothers took over, they changed that name from Leopoldville to Kinshasa. It was not an argument of he was a brutal leader. The argument was about reclaiming your identity as African people. And one of the arguments my former brother just brought up too is about we need all the important things to think about. Yeah, that's true. Healthcare, women's rights, children's rights, all those important. But when those guys are reading, like Thomas Sankara reading the place Burkina Faso in his traditional language, land of the right and unjust, hell, he could have not waited to say, well, we have to solve all the educational issues or all the economic issues. It's just of identity because symbols are very important. And on top of that, James Monroe, if he was so impressed about African liberation and Back to Africa movement, the first name in that was Paul Coffey. Why they couldn't recommend Paul Coffey as somebody to go name that city after? They ignore that because James Monroe operated on the sphere of white supremacy. And the aim of the ACS was to depopulate America for free black people and so that was the aim of ACS right there, to depopulate because they were afraid of a rebellion. Now, the same James Monroe man, he also never freed a single slave to go back to Liberia. So now we're honoring him, but now, hey, okay, some people went back to Liberia. How about the people that he kept in slavery forever until they died? So if a young guy came from Virginia, said, wow, why are you guys honoring you guys nigga Liberia? In Liberia? Because this guy, he kept my grandfather's slave. And he also fought against a slave rebellion. They killed some people who rebelled against slaves. So that disqualified him.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you. Now we go to the side that is against the name change to give their rebuttal. Mr. Percy Harris, are you available? If not, we go to anyone on the console.
Me and Lasha could share the time. Lasha, if you want to go, we could share that because I wanted to address something.
I think he's coming on. He's just turned his video on.
Okay.
Yeah. He's coming on. Yeah, he is.
Percy, unmute yourself and then you can start.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I was attending to something yesterday. I've listened to part of the argument against for the renaming of Monrovia, and what I keep hearing is the fact that James Monroe was a slave master. James Monroe was a slave master, and that's the primary reason people keep giving for the guy not being we shouldn't name a place after the guy. But I mean, I'd like to bring this thing back to our own Liberian setting. In Liberia, we have people that we just not take a one-track view of, right? I always like to put the guys Samuel Doe and William V. Todman in there, right? These are guys that have complex layers. Depending on who you talk to in Liberia, they represent different things, right? If you talk to people from the Tobo family, Doe represents something different. If you talk to an indigenous Liberian, like the Crown Group, Doe represents something different. So there's layer to the guy, right? So to just use this one-track mind and say this guy was a slave owner, and so based on that we should invalidate everything else that come after the fact, right? It's unfortunate, right? I don't think that's a good reason to want to change a place name, right? James Monroe was more than a slave owner, right? And matter of fact, again, we keep making reference to slavery. Like Monrovia was not named for Monroe, the slave owner, right? That's the point we keep missing in this argument. It wasn't named for the guy because he sold slave or owned slave. The guy was a public figure. The idea of Monrovia was the fact that what his administration did to foster what we now call Liberia, right? You have to go back and look at those facts, right? If we examine the facts, right, and what unfolded and what eventually morphed into the settlement of Monrovia, and because this is not entire Liberia thing we're talking. I keep hearing people saying Liberia. This is Monrovia, a single settlement, right? One of the, if not the original settlement for the settlers, this is a single settlement. And the reason they named it after the guy was the fact that what the administration did, right, in as far as facilitating the resettlement of indigenous the settlers to what is now Liberia. So this is if the argument is just James Monroe, the slave owner, then if we just want to look at slavery in this conversation, then we might as well look at slavery in its entirety. Because to come make a moral argument that this guy to own slave is the worst thing that can ever happen. And then at the end of the day, the people who sold the slave, then they're supposed to be having a moral high ground here. If it's just about slavery, then let's talk slavery. But if we want to look at this thing from a very introspective perspective, why the settlers did what they did, then let's have that conversation and let it be there. But if the argument is just slavery, then let's look at slavery in its entirety, right? Because you can't claim moral high ground for the guy that sold slaves, and then the guy who begotten the slave and treated them how he treated them, somehow the guy is the bad guy, and the guy who sold the slave is the good guy here. I don't reconcile that to talk about contradiction. I don't know what it is there, right? So that's part of the rationale. This is how I come to this conversation from that vintage, right? Monroe. Let's look at what Monroe did to facilitate what the administration did to facilitate that, right? So. The men have biases, right? Everybody have their own biases. We all have biases here. So, but let's look at what he did, because it was the public figure Monroe that people that the settlers were naming their settlement after. It wasn't the guy what he did at his house. If we pull most of everything we did in our homes here, I don't know, people will now see some So we all have dirty laundries at home, right? So we shouldn't come pretend here that everything is well and perfect with us, right? Let's look at the guy record for that was the one that is in the public that is affiliated with Liberia. Let's look at it for what it is, right? If it's wrong for us naming place after him, fine. But if the records show that he actually made concerted effort, right? The administration made concerted effort, then let's move on, right? That the people they want the rights to that land, right? They fought for it. If anything else, so you can't tell me a man who fought to be somewhere cannot name a place after he fought and died for it. He can name a place whatever he wants to name it after. I don't understand that argument, right? So that's that.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you heard from both sides why Monrovia should be renamed or not. And at this time, we're going to call on each side to, if you have questions for the other side. This time, we're going to start with the against side. If you have questions for the for side, 2 questions each. James, Percy, and Joe, do you have questions for?
Yeah, I do have a question. Let me just, because the background of the question is based on the suppositions being made by the opponents here. I don't know. I heard somebody say that the sole reason for which the ACA was founded was to repatriate blacks because they didn't want any blacks to be in America. That's not true. If you challenge anyone who says that to bring evidence, they will not be able. There were various shades of opinion.
James, you have a question?
Okay.
No, I have a question.
Yeah, James seems to not have a question.
No, I think James will give me a backdrop before he gives his question.
On that side for the
I don't know. You guys said you'll be giving warning if you thought I was.
No, I'm asking if you have a question.
I do. I was given a background, and I have 2 minutes for that, right?
Oh, okay. For a question, 2 minutes, James.
No. I'm just trying to go by the rule. So I'm sorry for that.
Okay. No, go ahead. Ask your question.
Okay. So then the question is, who wasn't a slave? Who wasn't a slave? James Monroe or the natives? The natives who fought the settlers because they wanted to keep engaging in the slave trade, and the settlers were against it. who isn't a slave? But my question to the panel is this: are you sure that the only reason for which the ACA was founded was simply because of hatred for black and to make sure no black man remains in America? Is that the only reason why the ACA was founded?
Okay. So that's one of our questions. Can I ask the second question to the answer?
Well, no, one at a time. One at a time. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, answer the question, Mr. Forsyth. That's the question. Vasiki Kone, Emmanuel Woods, and Prince William. You heard the question.
If I can go back to my history class way back in the 80s, it was said that the black people over here were jobless and they were criminals, and white people didn't want them to be mixed with them. And we all know when it comes to intermixing between races in America, it was wrong. It was considered to be wrong. It was criminal, matter of fact, criminal offense for black person and white person to have a relationship. It was a criminal offense for black person to attempt to drink from the same water fountain like a white man, white people. So all the history in America clearly show to the fact that these people didn't want black people here. Matter of fact, they said they want to send them to Haiti. Then they want to send them to Liberia. So it was not a very popular movement in America. A lot of black people were opposed to it because they said, we have suffered long enough in this country and you cannot just send us to somewhere where we don't know anyone. So those black people that accept to go, it's like no option for them. They were not given the option of freedom in America or to go in Liberia or in Africa for that matter. They were not given that option. It was something like, okay, if you stay here, you're not going to have equality with white people. So the only place you can go and feel superior to some other people is back to Africa.
Thank you.
So you go in there, regardless of whatever civilization they have, we are sending you there so you too can feel superior to some other people and impose whatever supremacy ideology be learned from us. So that's how those people came to Africa to colonize us. There's no benevolent definition of colonization. Colonization is just a colonization. It's just another step away from slavery. So if you can enslave someone, you can colonize that person. That is simple as that.
Thank you. And before they
can I ask
with their next question, anybody want to contribute to the answer of Hasiki provided?
Yes, I would like to. I would like to. Go ahead. Somebody else. Go ahead. Someone is speaking.
Yes, if I may.
Go ahead.
And if you know the actual history of the American Colonization Society, if you do the research, the sole purpose of the establishment of this American Colonization Society was to repatriate free black men and women that the white people of white mentality felt that could not coexist with them in the United States. Now, we often just take the American Colonization Society to be just one not piece. But the American Colonization Society was a conglomerate of different organizations. You have the Mississippi, you have the New York, and you have the Virginia, the New York, and the Pennsylvania chapter, and then you have the Mississippi and the Maryland chapter. And all those chapters, the Maryland, the Virginia, the Pennsylvania and New York chapter was well funded and one of the wealthiest chapter within the ACS, and that is the originality of the ACS. And the main idea, the main philosophy was to send free slaves back that they felt that could not coexist with them in the United States back to Africa. That was the main reason why the ACS were established. I just want to give that historical context.
Thank you. We will now go to Mr. Joel Williamson for the second question from that team. Mr. Williamson.
Yeah, my question on back is, I think Harris has this argument to where it needs to be. If slavery is, and to the question, if we're talking on morality of the immorality of slavery, I want to ask the group who are saying we should change the name because James Monroe was a slave owner. Could slavery have been possible without the role of Africans? Because if we're looking at this context of slavery and wonder, would there be a slave owners without the slaves, the sellers of slaves, which are our African brothers? Could there be slave masters without slave sellers?
Thank you.
Now to address that question, I want to say, state for the record, is that the reason as to why we asking our generation to do the right thing and correct the mistakes of our ancestors, because in the formation of all nations is not done through the perfect process. Even the United States democracy is being perfected. It was written in the United States Constitution that all men were created equal, and yet still people were subjected to being subhuman. And that was changed through various amendments. Now, I agree with you. Slavery is not just a policy thing; it's a moral issue. And there are Africans who were involved in the slave in the issue. If that is your argument, if anywhere was named after an African that were involved or perpetrated and carried out such inhumane treatment towards his own fellow African, anywhere that was named after that African, we will remove the African name from there. So it's not just a targeted thing we want to remove of James Maroon. It is a morality that is associated with slavery that we are looking at. And the contradiction is it imposed upon the notion of Liberia, a nation established by free slaves, naming themselves after slave masters, because the slave master gave them a handout. Now, I know we don't have much time, so we are kind of squeezing water out of the rock. But if you look at the chronological aspect as it relates to the change of Liberia name, Liberia name was not changed. Liberia name was changed during the Commonwealth era. Technically, by law, if you go in by law, Liberia doesn't have a capital city name, because Liberia, when Liberia name was changed to James Monroe, it was during the Commonwealth period of American colonization society. When Liberia gained its independence, it just carried over Monrovia as a capital city that was named after James Monroe. Now, the reason as to why our founding father named Monrovia after James Monroe was when they came, it was just 2 years after our founding father landed on Providence Island, when they have formed a peace alliance with the natives. When they moved onto the mainland, what we call Monrovia or Dubois today, there were still other natives that were encroaching upon them, were attacking them, and there was hostility going on. So they needed money, they needed funding to build a force or protection around them to be able to secure the settlement. That's how they talked to James Monroe. That's why James Monroe made provision for that, for the building of that force, and for the protection of the settlement, and for the survival of the settlement. But James Monroe's doctrine, the Monroe doctrine we know today, is a direct consequence as to why Liberia lose some of its territory to France, to Great Britain, to other sovereign nations. And it was a direct consequence as to why Liberia was prepared to declare its independence.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prince.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. It's not fair to us.
Hold on, Joe.
Yeah. America was neutral. America was not going to interfere with any foreign.
Prince, your time is out. Prince, your time is out. We will come to Emmanuel Woods for another 2 minutes to respond to that question. Mr. Woods.
Oh, can you please reframe the question, because I'll enjoy this.
The question is, if the issue is slavery, how about the Africans that were also engaged in slavery? If you be teaching them because of slavery.
In other words, he's asking, can slavery be,
well, yeah, I got it now. Okay. 1 minute. Okay, let me put it this way bluntly. Slavery by any means through the buyers and sellers is wrong. You know, it's unjust. Now, But honoring anybody who partook of slavery too, in my opinion, is wrong too. Now, I've been watching a lot of stuff that going on in America today. When we talk about Confederates, well, that is sad. But I've also seen that white Americans are also protesting against people who treated Africans as slaves. Don't you think those white Americans in America here can say, well, we're not going to change those names because it was your black people who sold y'all to slavery. So the point is that it's a moral argument for now. I never lived 200 years ago. I never lived 500 years ago. But for now, what a Flomo slave and this man, Boston George Washington, I don't think they should be honored in that regard. Because first of all, Monrovia, a capital of a city, should reflect the people that live there. You even move the moral argument. I cannot teach my son or my nieces or nephew that, oh, your city is named after this person. Are there no Liberian valuable for us to name the city after? But a man in America who was also responsible for slavery and he also crushed a slave rebellion, I can still use that moral argument. So that's my point. So we can use that, but also to, first of all, that man was not a Liberian at all. He was not a Liberian. In Kinshasa was changed. He go to what's his place name in Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe was changed.
It was changed. It was, well, of course, some of those guys worked with the colonial people and things like that, but it was not an argument.
Ghana was also changed from Gold Coast to Ghana.
Yeah. So it's an African identity. So thank you. That's what I want to say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now we will go to the four group, those who are for the name change, to ask two questions.
All right. I will ask the question here. When we are talking about changing the name of Monrovia back to its original name, why should the against group bring about distraction? Talking about, the people that committed war crime, we haven't done anything about them. The people that did this, we haven't done anything about them. There are multiple issues every nation has to deal with. So you can't say we got to finish there before we do this. That's why we have different people that deal with different issues in the country. You have different ministries that deal with different issues. So the question here is, it's not a distraction on their part to keep saying, let's do this before we do this. We are talking about changing more because if they don't have any substantive argument against our position, why are they distracting us about other issues?
Okay.
And the next question is...
No, hold on, Prince. Let him get the first question.
All right. So I will take that. Then Joel or Percy can go for the second. Well, to my own dear friend and brother Vaseki Kone, my very good friend. So I think what you just said is what sometimes people call reverse logic. Inverse psychology. You're trying to turn it around when in fact what you are doing is actually the distraction, because you are bringing an issue that if we were to set priority, which we ought to as a society, that will not certainly take the topmost order of business. So that's why we say it's distraction. We are talking about very serious things. That's it, for example. I'm not trying to accuse any panelists here or so, but what will you say today, for example, if some of those calling for the change of name were known to be those who also equally advocates for the forgiveness of warlords and others? We're talking about somebody who owned slaves 200 years ago. How about those who killed, massacred Liberians just a few years ago? And we are saying, oh yes, that's just a little thing. Let's just forgive them because, if we go after the thing, it will not be good. That's a distraction. We're talking about because without that, we're going to still be facing the problem of warlords enjoying a sense of complete impunity while they are wrecking against the society. So you are instead engaging in distraction. because again, this cannot take the topmost place in the order of business if we were to consider the most crushing, most pressing national issues, the burning issues, the bread and butter issues facing the Liberian people. And that's just a fact. Thank you.
Thank you. Any follow-up for James? Hold on, Prince. We still want to give a chance to the against side if anybody wants to.
Any further answer you want to provide to Vasiki's question? You are on mute, Percy. You are on mute.
What was the question again? Sorry, if you just rephrase, I mean, just the gist of it.
Vasiki, can you restate your question? Percy would like to.
Okay. I'm saying we are talking about changing the names of Monrovia to its original name. But then you have people here that are bringing about destruction, talking about, oh, there are people that are killed in the war. Why you haven't prosecuted them? Oh, there's corruption. Why you haven't done anything about that? So I think that is a complete destruction. But why are you not addressing the issue that we raised? They say because you have no answer, so you're just trying to find any kind of way to distract us from the main discussion here.
He got it.
I got the question. And I'm a proponent of the walking and chewing gum theory, right? I believe we can walk and still chew gum at the same time. So it's not, I mean, our heritage is always important. We should always have conversations about it. It shouldn't be relegated to second or to the tier rail where, I mean, we put it as something very foreign. This is very important. This is at the heart of what Liberia is at the end of the day, right? So, I mean, me and Mr. Last time I'll be arguing on not changing the name, but I think I kind of differ when it comes to trying to relegate this particular issue down to second tier status, right? Because it is very important, like who we are as a country and what it means for us. I mean, what kind of country do we want to have going forward? Is it an inclusive country that presents the mosaic that Liberia is an actual mosaic that all our people are incorporated into it, or is it one that says, you know, let's wipe away everything that came before us and start on a whole new slate? So it's very important that we have this conversation. I don't think we should relegate it.
Thank you.
Right. Second question from the team.
Yes, Dennis. Briefly before I ask that question, I want to say that for those who are maybe just coming to this discussion or debate, I hear the NOSA talking at it to say that this debate for the change of the name of Monrovia just starting today because of the Black Lives Matter. No, this debate has always been in existence. In fact, right after the coup, the first orator for the National Independence Day, his theme was the change of the identity of Liberia. He advocated for the change of the seal of the country, for the flag of the country, and for even the name of the capital city. And his name was Dr. Wardrobe or something. Even Sopa Nancy Potet, even will tell you, Sopa Nancy Potet, our proponent, and Bako Matthew, this debate has always been in existence. It's only now that we see the opportunity to have it in the discussion because the wind of change is blowing, and that's how fundamental people that seek fundamental change, that's how they operate. They use the wind of change as a sail to navigate the treacherous water of resistance to change. Now, my question is to the side, what's in a name? What does your name say about you? What value does your name reflect on you? And will you name your child after a rapist or child abuser or a criminal because that criminal will count to you or benevolent to you? That's my question. Because in the context of slavery, there was abuse, there was rape, there was sodomization, there was abuse of mistreatment, and James Morone facilitated all of those things. Do we want our country to reflect that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Answer that question.
Yeah, Joe, go ahead.
First and foremost, this is the worst mischaracterization of the name of Monrovia that I've ever heard. To suggest that, let me pick it back. Let us go to the Monroe Doctrine. What made him different? Yeah. What we call Liberia the then dark continent of Africa. In 1822 and 1824, when the moral doctrine came about, what is it? They were not talking about slavery. They were not patronizing his slavery. So the idea that we name that child, that we name Monrovia, change Christopoli to Monrovia because we wanted to, they wanted to patronize his slavery, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Let's look at what it meant when he addressed the Congress in 1823, when he changed America's policy. Because the first time he changed was in 1890 to 1894 when he served as America's ambassador in France. The whole changing, it changed. And when he came 1790 to 1794, but when he came back here to America and he was president and he had the opportunity, he changed America's policy. That they begin to look at emerging democracies, Republican government, and Liberia in 1822 were experimenting for that. That position policy saved Liberia from being annexed and being colonized by France and Great Britain and other things. It kept that colony right there. So they were honoring what he did there. It took a long time. When we became independent in 1847, they didn't decide to change the name because they appreciated what he did at that time. The idea that he gave money for a fort, that's why it has no historical backing. Let me say to the question again. We have a triple heritage. So when you're talking about Liberia and only want to look at our indigenous side, you are part of the problem. We have, our flag represents something. Changing the flag and changing the names and all those things without regard for our history, the settlers, without regard of those things, is digging one hole to close another. It's not solving the problem. We have a unique history, and we must embrace it for its triple heritage. Our Islamic brothers must be embraced, our indigenous brothers must be embraced, and our settlers, the settlers must be embraced. In that we form that union, that we can say in union strong success is sure. No one person, no one group owns Liberia. And the idea of beginning to change the name, that it must be named to something traditional, it creates another divisive wedge. Our history, it's what it is. Let us embrace it and figure a way we can move the country forward and reconcile us as one nation indivisible.
Thank you.
The name change will bring some divisive, it's a divisive mechanism.
Thank you.
And that's what I see.
And Joe, I want us to, we'll get the next question, but I just want you to mark down, because we're going to discuss the Monroe Doctrine later on, because what you are presenting, I want us to talk about that later on. But let's hear, that was the second question, right?
Yeah,
that was the second question. And guys, I want to make it clear, sorry, Dennis. The question was, what is in the name? What is it about name? And then he further the question by saying, will you name your child?
Thank you very much.
In honor of a rapist, in honor of a
let me say this too. My question we asked for was never answered. I wish you would be fair on the question when I asked.
Mr.
Williamson, stop the distraction. So again,
yes, somebody on the against side who will add more.
Yeah.
Because of this no answer. So next person.
So it's a false equivalency, right? I think it's a distraction for people to say, you name your child after a rape. The analogy in of itself just doesn't fit, right? James Monroe was not a rapist by any stretch. Nobody accusing of being raped, right? He owned slaves, right? We don't know how his slaves were treated, whether they were treated good or bad. But so we'll say you would name the point here is the point of this argument is whether or not James Monroe, why did settlers name the settlement after Monroe? And if you look at the they are, right? If you You just look at the Monroe policy. If you look at the 18 President Monroe and all the cautions that were taken and the seeding fund for the 100,000 that eventually led to these things, right? Look at those facts in and of themselves, right? Those were the reason where the city of Monrovia, the settlement of Monrovia was named for what for in honor of Monroe. It wasn't because of what he did at his house. I keep trying to make this point, right? Slavery was what you did at home. Jim Monroe was a public figure, so we're not honoring the guy for what he did at home. Nobody honoring you because you are goof. You are abusive. Nobody care about that. If you can't enjoy on what the policy say actually meant and what it actually be.
Percy, you are having some trouble there with the internet.
Again, if the argument is just slavery, and because you can hear me now?
Your internet is in.
You can hear me?
Yeah, you are in and out, so it's undermining the quality of your contribution, actually.
So you can hear me now.
That is the question will refer to me though. So in the end, you certainly want to listen to me.
No, what happens the last time if I'm being bad on this?
Right, no, person, you have another try. Try again.
Yeah, Jeans, I think you can attempt it's undermining Percy contribution actually.
Okay, cool. So Prince Williams asked the question of name. What is in the name and what is it all about? And then he also talked about the wind of change. So I think Joel Williamson properly responded to that in my view when he said that was a mischaracterization of the understanding that should be due to that. And also Percy added his, we just don't know. You can come and anybody can come and randomly make assumptions about an issue. Who knows? In fact, at the point during those days, during the operation of the ACS, there is record that there were many blacks who were freed and wanted to go to Liberia voluntarily. There were also, on the other hand, many blacks who were slaves who refused to be liberated. They wanted to stay with their slave masters. We read it, like Percy said, we don't know what happened in James Monroe's home. Could it be that some of his slaves were among those who they didn't want to be free or they didn't want to be sent to Liberia? Who knows? Or does that give us the right to make insinuations without any evidence? So the question of the wind of change, I want to let Prince know today. The wind of change that has occurred in America today, they didn't lead to the desecration of the George Washington Monument. And they didn't lead to the change of name of the American capital city, Washington, D.C. They didn't do that. And like Percy has said over and over, the wind of change in America is not about a place being named in honor of people who were good but at one time had slaves. It is against those who were deliberately honored because of their slave dealing adventure. So then what is in the name? A name is an identity. It's by which it's a source of pride. So then there's an argument that the ACS was dominated was all led by whites. That's not true. The ACS was made of mostly blacks. Joseph Jenkins Roberts, before becoming president, was a lieutenant governor, the second in command. So you can say the naming of Monrovia didn't involve his participation. That's not right. So then, if we say that, it means that they are the ones who had their life experience in America, who gave respect and credit to James Monroe for helping them, and by honoring him, they thought that was proper. At some point, they said the ACA has nobly and in perfect faith fulfilled its pledges to the people. Since then, we have prospered and grown. This is a quotation from the Declaration of Independence. You understand? More than that, Liberia is only 75 square miles. I'm going to repeat myself. Liberia is
3,000 square miles.
Monrovia.
Okay.
Monrovia is only 75 square miles. It's not even equal to 1% of the country. 1%. Not even equal to 0.01%. So you have the rest of the 99.9% of Liberia to go and give them all kinds of names. Leave Monrovia alone. That's very tiny. Go and build your places and give them names. After all, Monserrate is also a slave name. It's a foreign name. Monserrate is a foreign name, just like how Guinea is a foreign name, Conakry is a foreign name, Sierra Leone is a foreign name. You will have a lot of work to do going around changing names. Go and build your places and give them names and leave that little tiny piece of land that is the only best place in the country and go build your own country. Other than that, we might be probably attempting to do what happened in April 12th and on April 12th, 1980, when people thought they wanted to replace the legacy of other people. And we all know the atrocity and the injustice that were done in that process. What you guys are doing has been rightfully described as very divisive, potentially very divisive, and you need to desist from that, because we don't want to go revisit what has happened in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Now my question to, I heard both Percy and James mention that slavery was something done at home. I want you to clarify, because there was an economic factor, right? People are working in the cotton field, and this was for economic reason. People were working without pay. So when you say slavery meant something done at home, is not part of their public life, please explain more. James or Percy or Joe?
So I said, most of the time so what the guy did for his economic lot, right? What he did for his living, whether it was a farm and whatnot, at the end of the day, right? That was his economic interest. It was different from what when a political person is. So a woman that fixed donor in the morning, we don't see all the regimen are going to or donor making, we only see the end product at the end of the day. But if she was also a secretary, right? So even though she made donor at home, donor was like a home economics thing for her, but she was also a secretary. So if she was one of the things she was done in her secretary position, that had absolutely nothing to do with her home economics, right? That's what I meant by.
Yeah, because I wanted to correct that, because slavery was a public life. People did not, it's not like, okay, this person was married to 2 wives, so that's why he did all his home.
But Monroe, and I'm beating
general. This is public life. This is economic. This transglobal. People. So it's not like something that they do at home and nobody knows what goes on in the bedroom.
What I'm saying is, when you say the guy was a slave owner and all those things, right? His slave was kept to her. He didn't bring them to the White House. Maybe he brought 1 or 2 for service, right? But the majority, the bulk of them were kept to her. So that's what I'm saying to you. We don't know what the situation was at Monroe's house. Except you can tell me what the situation was there. Then you can say, okay, yeah, the guy was a slave owner. You were bad to black people and all those kind of things. We don't know what the situation was there. So my thing is, the public life was what he's under the microscope for. What did he do, right? How is he even attached to Liberia, right? How did that attachment come about? Was it through slavery? Was it through the ACS? All that stuff. So based on the fact it was based on the ACS, it was not based on his slave antics at home or how he treated his slave. That's not what people were basing. That's not why he was named or honored in Liberia for. That's completely not the case.
So is there any good side of slavery? Can you be a slave owner and you say, well, I was good to my slave? Or, like James, you made an argument that there were some slaves who did not want to leave. Maybe Monroe was good to them. Can that scenario exist?
Brother Janice, let me just say this. I think if there is going to be a group that will be advancing the argument for changing the name of Monrovia, they should have a substantive, concrete, evidence-based argument on it.
I agree.
On the other hand, it should not be based on insinuation, assumptions, and guesses. Not at all. We want a record to be shown that James Monroe was brutal to his slaves. That's what Percy is saying. If you don't have any record to show that James Monroe was personally brutal, inhumane to his slaves, it means that you do not eliminate the possibility that probably James Monroe, as he had slaves, might have been among those whose slaves might not have wanted to come home. Go to Africa. There is clear, or to be even free. We have abundance of record to show that there were others who just didn't want to be free. They wanted to stay with their slave masters. I'm not saying he was one. I'm also not saying he was one. I'm just saying we cannot begin to castigate him, do mischaracterization without any evidence, proof, or record, even nothing.
I have a question. I have a question. Hold on, gentlemen. Again, folks, you are watching Focus on Liberia, and we are having a debate here for the name change of Monrovia. There is a team here that is for it and another team that is not for it. We have also posted a link there for you to participate. Very soon we'll be going to our phone lines and comments. But I have a question, and my question is for the team that is against the name of Monrovia to be changed. My question is, does morality has any limit? Is morality about wrong or right? If it is yes, that morality is about wrong or right, then why are you trying to separate morality when it is just a single and impeccable fact? What is wrong, what is right. But what I see you guys doing here is Monrovia has slaves, but it was not because he did a lot of good things, so he's worthy, all right, to be named in honor of Monrovia. That's why you're doing. And these guys are making a statement that what the slavery he participated in was wrong. So any effort to name him in honor of Monrovia, it is wrong as well. It's not a good thing to do because the man was a slave master. What's your response?
So let me take that question. And I like you brought that up because it paraphrases my question in the fact that I asked earlier whether the people who sold the slave, we talked about morality. If you're going to consider slave ownership as immoral, the selling of slaves must be immoral too. So, therefore, if we are saying we're going to take the name from Liberia from Monrovia, because it represents a slave owner, why then should someone who participated in the selling of slaves, indigenous person, have the right to name Liberia? Why? Because we're talking morality. Immorality cannot only be because of James Monroe was a slave owner. And we think now those who consider themselves indigenous and the rightful owner of the Monrovia has the right to rename it, something traditional, as if to say the traditional people were on the sideline and did nothing to encourage slavery. Slavery did not happen only in America. Maybe if we have fought better, have fought more, there will be no James Morrow's owning slaves. So your morality question goes both ways. It goes to those who sold slaves.
And Joel, I agree with you. It goes both ways, and that's why I asked the question. So I'm not for either side.
No. So that was the original question.
Let me learn. If you are agreeing that either way, slavery is wrong from the seller side, from the buyer side, whatever wrong that we know now that exists from either side should be corrected. Do you agree or disagree?
So the question was the question here is:
do you agree that whatever wrong that happened on either side be corrected? Do you agree or disagree?
Well, but we don't correct it. We not. Yeah, it should be corrected, but the name change is not a correction. It's not a corrective measure. The name change. Let me just finish this. I will land. The name change is not a corrective measure.
Then what is a correction? If the name change cannot be a correction, then
the name change is not a corrective measure because it was not named because of the patronizing as a slave owner. If that were why they did it, then you have a right to say the slaves they're from here. If you're insulting the slave, the settlers, to say they went back home because when he made a mistake and say Joseph Jiggy Robinson did not have anything to do with the renaming of Monrovia, that was not true. These were black men, Jehudi Ashman, and they were slaves. Yeah, they agreed to that. To say they were patronizing a slave master is an insult to them. And it's an insult to them. It's not resonant. In fact, it was because of the Monroe Doctrine. I will keep going back to it. A role he played in public life. When he spoke on that, it changed a lot of things in Latin America. with Argentina, with Chile, with Peru, around that time. So look what he did. Monroe. Monroe presidency was
Monroe
called the
doesn't
era
have
of
nothing to do with this thing.
You make
Monroe
your
doesn't have
point,
nothing.
Nothing to do with this thing here.
You make your
Let me
point,
This is
Joel. Thank
distraction.
you.
Let me
Joel,
finish.
thank you. You make your point.
That's an argument, yeah. That's my argument, yeah. Hold up. The 1824, when Monroe spoke in March of 1823,
Joel, you make
that
your
name was
point. You
changed
have
in
to ask question on the other
1824.
side.
Okay,
You make your
but
point.
before we put it, you can go ahead and give them. But the 1824, it didn't just happen in a vacuum. It was after the speech in Congress of 1823. That's when the movement is shifted. And if you say yeah, it has nothing to do with that, okay, but that's not the fact.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I piggyback?
No, I have to ask question on the other side, please. This question is for the four group, those who are for the name change. Vasiki, I'm starting with you. When you were making your opening statement, you said that for a stranger to come and name a place is disrespectful to the owner or the original owner of the place.
Yes.
So are you trying to make the point that the settlers that came, that helped to form Liberia, were strangers, and so they didn't have the right at all to name a place in that country that they helped to form? Is that your point?
Well, the settlers, when they came as a stranger and they met other people on the ground, what they should have done was to negotiate with those people, make them part of every arrangement. But the fact that they made the arrangement of calling it Monrovia, despite it being called Duco, and it even took many, many years. I can say 30 years before those people they met here were considered citizens. That was disrespectful. So there's no way we can have a situation like that. That never happens anywhere in the world. Where except if you operating on this white supremacy ideology, that's the only way you're going to go somewhere and disrespect people and give name to them, force them to accept any name you want. It's like you're holding them at gunpoint. Exactly, that's what happened in Liberia. And that not only in Liberia, that was the colonial mentality everywhere. You know, where some people think that they have the right to come and wipe out the poor people. It happens in America here with the Native Americans. It happens all over Africa. You know, it happened in Latin America, it happened in New Zealand, it happened in Australia. So when it happens to us in Liberia, we have the right to protest against it. And what we are talking about here, it's not a new argument. President William Tubman, in his own wisdom, at some point, set up a committee to review all of the symbols of Liberia, which were headed by me. All right.
Yeah, you got it. Your own point. Go ahead.
And Prince, if you want to come in, that's a follow-up.
All right, I'll finish here.
Yeah, it's a follow-up. It's a follow-up for your team. It's a follow-up for your team. That is the name Monrovia being given to that piece of land there, or that piece of place in Liberia. What did it take away from the country or the Aborigines for which you are against it? Did it take anything from them just by naming that place Monrovia instead of Duco? Did it take anything from them?
Well, what it took from them is the fact that the settlers believe everything African is negative. Everything they brought from America is positive. So Duco didn't sound good in their ear. They thought it's something negative. Everything African, everything black was negative in the ideological explanation. So obviously, when you live in a society where one side think that everything about this other side is wrong, is negative, then something is wrong with that mentality.
Thank you, Vasiki.
So today,
thank you, Vasiki. Let's bring Emmanuel in. Emmanuel, the
Yeah.
name Monrovia being given to that piece of place in Liberia, did it take anything away from the Aborigines who were there before the settler got there?
Well, thank you for giving me the time. I've not talked much. This has been the intention of white supremacy. When they go around the world, they ignore other people and feel that they are less than humans. And so, oh, I discovered this place, and I call this place Mount, whatever. And you ignore the people and dehumanize them and name things after them. So, in a sense, for some reason, it disrespected the people who were there, who have become citizens now. Now, get my point now. I'm not so into reverting back the name they play Ducor or Dubois. For me, wherever. But my point is that you can name your city after a famous Liberian, Blighting. Everyone with Blighting. Everyone with Blighting. Or you can name it as a combination of different names where you can say, Kukatono, we are one. But the thing about when you say Kukatono, some of us feel that, oh, that's a country name. Because tell us the truth, I grew up, I'm 50 years old. Names like Koli, Kamara, Kanga, it's too country. So our subconscious, it's not good for us. So when name things with those traditional names, for some people, it's bad because it's inferior. So Kukatono, we are one city, or name after Blighting, or Marcus Garvey. I'm just speculating.
Thank you.
So that's what I'm gonna say. Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. Let me follow up. Guys, we know write history. The ex-slaves came. There were some wrote that there were land purchased. Some say it was negotiated. Some say it was gone to the head. Whatever the situation, things happen, and the city was renamed Monrovia based on how they established the country. In fact, there was no country called Liberia prior to the coming of the settlers, so everything we're talking about was, has its own name. And we know write history. It's like right here in America. I don't think this place was called United States of America before the pioneers came. So why go back to rewrite history? What's the benefit? If you did not do it, the people came together. In fact, the natives were non-citizens until later. And that's the country we have now. So why are you going backwards instead of forward?
Well, we're not going backward. Or somebody want to answer that question?
I can answer a little bit. I don't think it's going backward. It's been progress. Progress is re-evaluating yourself and looking what is worth for you. So it's not going back. But this is the problem I'm seeing with the whole argument. The moderator said need to help. Monrovia was never named by the settlers. I heard Percy, everybody saying that. Oh, Monrovia was named by the ACS. All the leaders of the ACS in America were white people. Some of them were politicians, they were lawyers, they were clergymen. It was never named by the settlers. So clear that out. Now, if it was named by the settlers, I won't have a problem with that much. But I was saying, no problem. Say, well, maybe it's near cheese now. But it was never named by the settlers. Now, if you go to a place or they name the place after how you call it, Bensonville, that's fine because Benson was the president of Liberia. But Monrovia was never named by the settlers. You're going to tell the children it was never named by the settlers. That's what we think. So it's not going back. It's going forward. It's progression. It's progression. Yeah.
All right. Let me just piggyback on that question too.
And to add to that,
Please go, Vasiki.
All right.
To that question, and I'm glad you asked that question because we try to argue and we try to debate based on the fact that just to show what side makes sense, and then in that aspect of debating the argument, we lost the whole bigger picture.
Yeah.
Our argument here is Liberia, the nation we know today called Liberia. There was an ideology of our founding fathers that transcends within that to our contemporary time as it is. And like my brother said, the naming of Liberia was not done by consensus, was done by imposition. But as it with Liberia, everything goes in Liberia. Anything happens in Liberia. In fact, when was Monrovia named? When the settler came, they had a unique name. They gave it the name Christopolis, City of Christ, in honor of the God that protected them, that carried them to the treacherous sea and brought them to a shore. They named Providence Island the first city landed. And when they got on shore, they place the land there, they make offering to God, they name it Christopolis, city of Christ. But when, first of all, the Maroon doctrine had nothing to do with Africa. People keep talking Maroon doctrine, Maroon doctrine. In fact, Maroon doctrine was one of the most trusted doctrines that encourages colonialism, that promotes, that caused the British and the French to go on feet, separating and dividing Africa today. That even caused Liberia to lose some of its territory. The Maroon doctrine of neutrality. The only reason why the ACS, the leadership of ACS named the colony, at that time, it was not even Liberia. It was just a Commonwealth. They named that part of the Commonwealth Monrovia is because it was a patronage to Maroon, so they can help Maroon to be America to be sympathetic with Liberia, so that the British and the Sierra Leone cannot take Liberia territory. In fact, to reinforce that, why didn't America recognize Liberia independence?
For 15 years.
America was almost one of the last countries that recognizes Liberia independence, because America cared less about Liberia being a country. So the important is that, yes, we have our native people who welcome them. The place name was Ducor, and it was named Christopolis, and then named James Maroon. It infringed upon the rights of all Liberians, not only the natives.
Thank you.
It was done
another mischaracterization. You say it was named Ducor when the settlers came?
You didn't say that. It was Ducor before Christopher.
It was named Christopolis.
Okay, Christopolis. Hold up. Because you guys are saying
against. Hold on.
Thank you, sir.
Final question to the side that is against. And all of you can come in and participate. Then we'll go to our phone line. Also, our callers. The man went in for so long. James, during your opening statement, you said that the whole name change is complete triviality. You dismiss it. It's not important. It's a distraction from national development issues. And you got me thinking, is the Lassa family, that name Lassa, it's not important, and what is important is how you pay your bills, your light bill and all that. That is why important about that Lassa family, that name Lassa, which is the legacy, which is the identity of the family. It's not important. That's the point you are making here. And you are saying that we should focus on national development issues. Is it not possible that while trying to change the name, we can carry on national development issues, since you said that this thing, is complete triviality, something that trivial, you can close your eye and put it aside, right? So let's take care of it. What do you think about it?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think we should take care of it by leaving it as it is, as easy as that. Again, I must repeat, name is important. Names are important. And the name was given by those who were being grateful. If again, I will refer you to the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration is a statement of intent, of sentiment, of feeling. In the Declaration of Independence, there are very harsh words used. Harsh words, very, very harsh words: barbarians, slavery, injustice. I mean, sometimes you can view some of the words are installed. But there is no instance in which the declaration or the hymns of declaration, there are various hymns of declaration associated with that as well. None of them make any reference to James Monroe being named, or the city being named in honor of James Monroe, as something that was arbitrary or unjust or not fair. So it is wrong, again, like my brother Emmanuel was saying. It was just ACAs and white. That's not true. The ACA was made of whites and blacks. When the ACA was founded for various reasons, not just to remove blacks out of America and send them to Africa. It was because there were those who wanted to Christianize.
I have the names of all the officials of the ACS. I will send it to you.
Okay, I'm coming. There were some of the motivations included the desire to Christianize Africans. Another one was to civilize Africans. Another one was to set the blacks free, let them go and be independent. So
there was so much Christian, and they were keeping people enslaved and abusing them, raping them. And there was so much Christian.
All right. Yeah, exactly. So it's not right to say so, and it's not also right from a brain man to say that it was young or white. Joseph Jenkins Roberts wasn't a white. He was a lieutenant governor. He was the second most powerful person in Liberia before independence. They were part of the ACA. They were part of the Commonwealth government. They were blacks. Why do you think you should feel more pain for these people who lived their experiences? And in the declaration, they even refer to the ACS as an institution that has done so well. And here is what it says, quote unquote, the ACS, it has nobly and imperfect faith fulfilled its pledges to us, and we have grown and prospered. These are people that were educated most likely more than now.
Mr. Lassa,
yeah.
If we must believe everything that is said in that Declaration of Independence, what it said, under the auspices of the American Colonization Society, we establish ourselves here on land acquired by purchase from the laws of the soil. Do you believe that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Can I just add to?
Why do you think I shouldn't believe it?
That they have acquired the land, Liberia, because they purchased it from the laws of the land. LORDS.
Yeah, the laws that is just a respectful way. They didn't want to say barbarians.
So actually,
they were referring to the natives, and they were
and they purchased the land from the native. You believe that?
Of course, in many instances they did. I believe that. I don't have any evidence to the contrary. So in some instances, they use force. In some instances, they use that's history. It's documented.
No, but they said the purchase. They didn't talk about force. That's why I was asking you if you.
No, but that's a little small piece of land. You know, Liberia expanded over and over time. That's a point. That's a specific point in reference. I don't think they are referring to the cumulative period of the existence of the country at that point.
No, but before this was written, you were saying no land was purchased through force. I mean, no land was acquired through force. Everything prior to the Declaration of Independence was purchased legally.
Again, that is a documented history, and I want to believe it because they were trading.
Then you rather believe the history of Matilda Newport. Then.
No. It's not, there is no historical evidence for her. If you don't know, there's no history for Matilda Newport. Matilda Newport, rather. There's no history.
Let me come in.
All right. We want to go to our comments. We want to read some comments, and then we go to our phone lines. The phone lines are swelling up. So let me read a few comments from our Let me read a few comments here, and then we can go. Jawikan Weah say, I'm in support of changing the name, as doing so will require changing the name of the entire country. Maybe he say, I'm not in support. The name derived from the end of slavery. Liberia means liberty or freedom. It was a symbol of any legal slave trade. This also means changing our flag. James Blythe said the first speaker, Connor, is in place for the reason to change the name Monrovia. Amandu Blaine, these guys are crazy. What you're supposed to change is your number of senators and representatives. Larry Emerson, can the speaker, Mr. Kennedy, I don't know who Kennedy is, provide historical evidence in his description of ACS founders' intent for sponsorship returning to Liberia? Tipos Dempster, what will be the Liberian people benefit from changing the name of Monrovia? Joe Cassell, slave owner James Monroe and the ACS were the biggest con played later in Liberia. Their aim was to rid the USA of free blacks because they felt that since the situation of slavery had been lifted, there would be no government sanctioned a way of keeping blacks in place. The ACS, along with Monroe, looked the idea of free blacks returning around the USA. They saw this was a threat. So why honor Monroe when he was part and parcel of this conspiracy against people of African descent? The name must be changed back to Ducor. That's James Cassell. Josh Toto, Prof. Connor, it's unfortunate for you to denigrate the ACS to say that they're carrying disgruntled Africans back home to Africa. Dave called it too much no more in Liberia. Plenty talk, and once they too in everyone's go back to normalcy. Again, Joe Baba, the change of name is necessary because naming Dupo Monrovia erases thousands of years of indigenous history. Jerry Marshall said James Monroe was racist. We need to change the name. Mengazuye Kawa. So what's the intended name now, since you guys are debating the change of city that had already been named? Jackie Sayer, we are capable of walking and chewing gum at the same time. In personal life, nobody focuses on just one thing. People walk, love, get sick, eat dinner, sleep, etc. Swaziland is Watini, changed its name, and the world did not end. They did it while balancing their budget, building roads, and promoting tourism. The same with Rhodesia, now Zambia, and Zimbabwe, and Malawi. Upper Volta, Burkina Faso, Dahomey, Benin, Burma, Myanmar, East Pakistan, Bangladesh, and the list goes on. Let me read one last one. Chester Smith, how can I be part of this discussion? I need to come in, but it's difficult.
All right, Dennis, let me read this one from Dave Ja. Is Lassa joking or what is he talking about? I believe those who want to defend Moro, are not defending the settlers because the settlers were direct victims of slavery. You are not defending the settlers, but rather you are re-traumatizing and re-subjugating them. You are doing a disservice to the people. I say, Professor Isaac Zawdo writes, are you setting that our people sold people into slavery? He's asking the question, somebody who made a point. This one from Jackie. So maybe if the indigenous had fought with spears with the Europeans who had guns and cannons, wow, we need to start teaching history, the real history in our schools.
James, you want to respond quickly before we go to our...
And Sonny, I have to say that that's a very good point you made. There is also record that the natives, in some instances, were able to defeat the Caucasians, the Europeans. They killed them, they captured them, killed them, especially when they felt the Europeans were disrespectful and they were going into their territory without their permission. So it's not that the natives were so helpless. No. We too have our own history of valor as well. You understand? And yeah, there were also times when the sailors, most of the history we have was chronicled by those who were sailing. So there were times when they came, the Caucasians, they traded in guns and gunpowder and perfume. So, and the natives sold pepper, mean pepper, ivory, tusks, and hides, the skin of animals and things, and elephants. Those days, Liberia was recorded. Yeah, those days, Liberia was recorded to have more elephants than Africans or anywhere else. So they used to go there for ivory and other things. So through that process, they sold guns to the natives. So at some point, the natives had guns just as how the whites had guns, and there were times when the natives killed white, just like in Haiti, when the black generals killed a lot of white generals. So we were blessed, but there were times, most times it was peaceful. One of the times when it was controversial and very contentious was when the natives wanted to perpetuate the slave trade, and the settlers didn't agree. That also led several times to fights, to clashes between them. So it was there were also times when there were peace and the bought land with money, with gunpowder, and with guns. So yes, they were able to buy pieces of land. Not all of Liberia. Liberia was already bought, owned before they joined Liberia. So when the guy is claiming that they use money to purchase land, yes, that is not out of the realm of possibility. And in fact,
let's be fair to the foresight to respond to the comments as well.
The foresight. Anybody want to take a shot?
The first thing I want to say, the against side.
Emmanuel was talking of Basiki.
All right, go ahead, Emmanuel.
Well, let me just read your statement, because for me, I like to read and stick to the facts. The men that conceived the idea of colonizing African Americans, finance it, nurture it, were not African Americans or ordinary Americans. majority of African Americans opposed colonization, but leaders of the American government, the American clergy, the American aristocracy, the American political leaders who fostered the creation of the Liberian state included President Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, James Monroe, Andrew Jackson, Chief Justice John Marshall, Speaker of the House of Representatives Henry Clay, Francis Kosky, the author of the National Anthem of the United States, to name a few. So those core leaders of the ACS, they were not black. Were not no single black man, because Frederick Douglass, who was the most outspoken black man, was not even allowed to be among them. So we shouldn't ask the black people among them. Majority opposed that. This is history. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to our phone line.
Before you go to the phone, let's
this is post to four. So if you may allow me, Percy, I think this is the fourth to be on the mail contract point. So if you may allow,
let Percy finish. Let Percy finish. We'll come.
So when the first ship left, before the first ship left New York Harbor, with the eight settlers on it for Freetown, right? There was something drew up between the immigrants and the ACS agent on it. It's called the Elizabeth contract, right? That contract basically said, right, how the settlers, what rights the settler had, how the governor can interact with the settlers and whatnot. So the notion, right, even at that early stage, right, the settlers knew that they were coming to freedom. They knew they were right. Before they even left, there was compact. There were way of we call it into constitution, right? But it was more like a compact. Everybody had a defined rule and how things were done, right? So the notion that somehow Burley, who was the one that came with the idea to name Monrovia, the agent Burley, right? And somehow things were just spit out in America and superimposed on the settlers is ridiculous, because the evidence just showed that these people had sense enough to even draw up compact between them and the ACS. So the notion that somehow they just decree Monrovia and then the people then just accept that Monrovia down there, it's just there is no factual basis to that. When the fact is, what we see in history, the evidence shows that the settlers were not crazy people. They knew where they were coming. They knew where the interaction with the ACS were. Right, so they drew up something. So there was the settlers. Nothing was superimposed. That is just not factual.
Thank you, Prince. You can speak, and then we go to our lines. Prince, go ahead. You're on mute.
Good.
Well, firstly, just to let you know, that is the historical evidence of the establishment of the American Colonization Society. Emmanuel just referenced that to you, and that historical information is at the Library of Congress. This American Colonization Society, I don't want to take away from the real main point. The point here is that Liberia was established for free men of color. Liberia was a country that should be the beacon of light in Africa. For Liberia to name accept the name its capital after a man who did not share the same philosophy of the founding father, who in fact saw the very founding father as a soft human being that they cannot coexist with. It's a complete contradiction. Our founding father got it wrong, just like the American founding father got it wrong. And it's incumbent upon us to make that right, to make things right. And that place was named for our ancestors. And it was named by the founding father, Christopolis. The founding father only named it Monrovia because they wanted the sympathy from America, and they wanted the protection from the former slave masters. And this is why we need to be able to bring our country back to its original idea. And that original idea is that it's a country of free men, and freedom and liberty should be the focus point, and immorality that was done towards people of color should be given, should not be emphasized or overlooked. And I think that's why we all are doing here. And we try to use distraction about native selling slaves and this. No, we're talking about Liberian here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me just throw in there.
No, okay. Excuse me. You guys are you want.
Hold on. Hold on. We're going to go to our phone lines now. When they ask a question, you can use that time to kind of throw in whatever you wanted to say. And the first question,
guys, please take note as the callers come in. Go ahead.
Yes.
Aliyu Kamara.
Yes, sir. I'm very honored to be on the show today. Thank you guys so much for having me. So, if you say something, Dennis, I want to know, I know you're from Sinai. What's the name of your village in Sinai?
Who are you talking to me?
Yeah, Dennis Jai. What's the name of your village in Sinai?
No, that's city, man. It's called Dublican.
Dublican. Okay, I'm a Madingo man from the Kwadu. I'm a Madingo man from the Kwadu Goni region and half from Bon Country, but mainly from Kwadu Goni, from Jamuro town. And I'm going to go to Sino along with my group of people and change your place from Bogodo town or whatever to Fanatu. How would you like that?
That's hypothetical.
That's my question. Yeah, but I mean, how would you like the hypothetical speaking? How would you like
no, I wouldn't like it.
Yeah, okay, now. We had the Pele people who have been in the area for so many decades. We had the Mambamba people who have been in the area for centuries. And then somebody come one day and say the place is called Crystal College. Without taking the feelings of those other people who named that particular place. See, that place was named after the river. The river now you call Famiton. That do. The Bassa may call it do. Just as the Pele may call it Nia. So the both of them started and called it Duko. You come after so many centuries. You come there and you change it to Crystal Paul. And then later on change it to Monrovia to meet your own interests. And some Liberians will sit in studio and sound sophisticated and refuse the identity. Look, Councilor said something before. He said Liberians want to be everything else but Liberian. How can you be so sophisticated without an identity? My brothers and sisters, no matter how you force yourself to be something that you are not, you will not be recognized. No, they can call you Williamson Dickinson in America. As long as you have a Liberian accent, they don't care what your name sounds like. As far as they know, you are a Liberian. When will you identify? Most of the writers make this thing very, very simple. And this is not even an argument. Most of the other countries around the world that went back to find the actual root through their name to begin with, they now have the kind of resistance that Liberians will put up. If somebody tries, listen, guys, this thing is so simple. There's no argument. You go to Grand Bassa, the Bassa metric Benzo. Somebody goes there to Benzo and change the capital city of Benzo to Buchanan. And without the Bassa people even knowing who is Buchanan. If you ask 20,000 Bazola in Buchanan today, who was Thomas Buchanan, they cannot tell you. Is that fair to the people over 100 years, over 2,000 years who were in Bezo, who called that place Bezo? Was it fair to the people of Bezo for you to go there and change their capital city to Buchanan without consulting them? And when the people of Benson say they want to change from Buchanan to Benson, you tell them, oh, you're trying to bring war? I mean, what kind of sophistication is it to have this to argue about something that does not require any argument? Like you call Greenville to the Islamic country. It was named before Greenville. There was a name of that particular town before Greenville. If the Sabo people or the Crew people of Islamic country decide we want our name back, you will say it is wrong, it is an infringement against those who came and imposed upon them. How do you think you sound sophisticated when you ignore the reality? The reality is the so-called green coast existed before the slaves. The places that they name, I can guarantee you, were not just places empty without people or without names. The places they name were places that had names. Yeah.
We got your
No,
plan.
before you give up, let me get you more before you get.
We got a lot of colors here.
Okay. And to that I'm talking about Anthony. Why did you said me when somebody played Bakersville? Did we have any true men 300 years ago called Bakersville? So what was the name of Bakersville? We gotta go back to our roots. The beginning of finding out finding true reconciliation is by finding out true identity. Thank you.
Can I send him a message? I think I was mentioning something there.
Yeah, let's get our next caller. That would be 6750 area last 4 digits. Your name and where you calling from? 6750.
That caller is not paying attention. Then let's go to the next person.
The next caller, the next caller will, let's take the next caller. Oh, that's the same person, 6750. Let's go to Atot Wiado. No, this is not Atot Wiado. It's Atot Do.
Yeah.
Yes, your name and where you calling from?
My name is Atot Wiado, and I'm calling from the state of Maryland.
Go ahead.
Here's the situation. I think I don't want to call this entire a conversation, very, very genuine conversation, the BS. But I think all of us, whether you are for or you are against, I think we are all talking about one place, which is the Republic of Liberia, where we have reached. We need to make some very serious progress. Liberia, when the settlers came to Liberia, they met some people on the ground. They met people on the ground. I didn't hear anybody, nobody went to Liberia and imposed their rights or impose whatever people are saying on the indigenous that they met on the ground. There were some indigenous who could not with the settlers. And those guys negotiated because the settlers had the economic power, they were financially sound. They came with money. All right? And the men those guys, they negotiated, they didn't come and just impose all of these places like Monrovia or whatsoever. All right? So I think what we are supposed to be discussing, it is not about changing, because if we change Monrovia, we have to change a lot of things. It means that we have people who will be going back even 100 and some years again. So it is important that we need identity. We should have such identity that will include every Liberian, whether you are American Liberian or not. Professor Connell said something right that I want to talk with him. That is, apparently, the indigenous that the settlers met on the ground, they didn't actually get to negotiate with the people themselves. Maybe the senator 2 or 3 parties will be in the favor and go into this particular negotiation so that they give the people a little money, people buy land, and they begin to change things just that kind of way. That is why you see that. That is what is happening to our so-called dual citizenship today. That you don't involve the entire organization and you come with some kind of nonsense and you say we should change, we should wait, accept whatever, and then wait a little bit, then we can prepare for another thing. This is wrong, and we have to move forward. We have to move forward with this particular country, Liberia, and it's out of our country, and we have to make sure that we create the platform, the playground, so that every Liberian, whether you are in the diaspora or you are on the ground, to partake into the border politics, to move the country forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's go to the next caller from 267 area code. 1709, your name and where you calling from?
This is Dr. Baba. I'm calling from Pennsylvania. And I'm also calling to express gratitude to all of you for, discussing something that is very culturally relevant to the development of the country. And it blesses my heart because I've been in that area for more than 46 years. And I'm glad that the young people are picking up the need for us to do a cultural rebirth in the country. The issue about names with respect to our culture, African names have meaning, and African names are, attached to our heritage, they're attached to our history and culture. So, for instance, if you came to Dubois and you decided to rename Dubois Monrovia, what that means in reality is that you are erasing thousands and thousands of years of history of the people, their culture, their experiences, how they got to that place and how they named the place, why they named it so. You erase that history and culture. When you erase that history and culture, what happens is that consequently it affects the generations that come after the name has been changed. And they lose that history and culture. And if we don't know our history and culture, then it leads us to thinking, leads us to being somebody else that we are not.
Thank you.
Being somebody else that we are not makes you to lose love for your country. It makes you to go with the wind. So that's why you see in Liberia, a lot of people go with the wind. They don't stand on their feet to speak their mind because from the onset of the establishment of the country, there was this indoctrination that took place. And it's not just Dubois alone. You have Belson and you have Menelu. Menelu, with respect to the global history and culture, the word Menelu describes the historical narrative regarding the Grebo people after they left because they were originally part of the Crown people. And when they left, they had confusion. They traveled back to areas back to like Togo area, and then after some time they decided to come back. They're on their way back. They journey on the ocean in canoes. And as they were approaching Belenu, the people who saw them for the show, it seemed like monkeys were jumping from tree to tree. So that's how they named the place Belenu. So when you change Belenu to Cape Palmas and Cape Harper, then you have to erase that whole history about how our global ancestors migrated and settled in that area. You see, so it's very significant. You may think that it's not significant, but these things are very, very significant, and I want you to take it very seriously because when we go back to our roots, that will help us to get out of some of these traumatic conditions that we're in today in Liberia. But I just wanted to touch base with all of you to say thank you for the conversation. And it doesn't mean that you are disenfranchising anybody for not being Liberian. What it means is that the majority of the people, this is democracy, and democracy goes by majority. So if majority of the people's history has been affected, it's the right of the majority to request that history be corrected. So that's where we stand with this. It got nothing to do with sectionalism or tribalism, but it has to do with true history.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dad. Our next caller, 6750. Are you there now?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead. Your name and where you calling from?
Yeah, my name is David Plum. I'm calling from North Carolina.
David, your question. 1 minute.
My question to both for and against, but especially for the for. I understand the importance of name change because practically maybe what happened in the U.S. Maybe that's what kind of motivating the Liberian community and the Liberian people for name change. But my problem is, even those who left from here to Liberia, they enslaved the indigenous people while in the country. The indigenous people had to build the city. The indigenous people were brought to the city as housekeepers, and they were denied basic human rights, basic education, healthcare, and all of that. That's why they call the hinterland and the city. So my question is, those very same black people who are saying slavery was bad and they don't want to name Monrovia after a slave holder, are we going to be changing some of the street naming Liberia, Benson Street, Iceland Street, Newport Street, so that we can have a conclusive name change to reflect the historical aspiration of the Liberian people? That's my question.
Thank you. Very fair one. Let's go to our friend from the Minnesota area code 4200. Your name and where you calling from?
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Isaac Tucker.
Welcome, Isaac. Your personal comment.
Yeah, I have a comment, most especially I want to say that the problem with this discussion that I see is mainly we have a problem of historical context. Okay. When you look at it, those against defeated themselves firstly because one of the participants said the topic was irrelevant, and the other one who was for said, no, it's relevant. Okay, we can eat and chew gum. So on that line, they defeated themselves on that one, we threw that one out of the box. The second point was the historical context. They started talking about the Monroe Doctrine, which had nothing really, no historical basis. The Monroe Doctrine was purely geared towards South America, because at that time, Spain was trying to ferment problem within America. Texas was trying to be free, I think. So the Monroe Doctrine was simply saying, okay, the old world and the new world. You can turn your face, you can divide Africa, you can divide Asia, but America, this coastline, if you come, you spread mutiny through Mexico, you spread mutiny through these people. So the Monroe Doctrine was purely for that. Now, thank you. The next point is, in 1822, when they changed the name 1824, Liberia was the Commonwealth, as the other group stated. Yes, Liberia was the Commonwealth in 1824. We had a white man ruling the Commonwealth. That was Julius Ashman. He was white. Okay? They were not the settlers. The settlers, yes, they were educated, and they said they wanted a place to be called Christian Polis. That's why they told the ACS. The ACS agreed during the Commonwealth period now. Okay? We should know that it was not Liberia at that time. So they said they wanted Christian Polis. But it was during when they bought the first land they purchased was Providence Island. When they moved up to the mainland, they were constant attack. Read all the history books. Okay, American government had nothing to do with Liberia formation. The ACS was purely a private religious thing of white men. It had nothing to do with they just named it America Colonization Society because it came from America. You can say Liberia is here in America. It don't mean like the American government something. It was purely a private entity geared solely to carry black people back to Africa because they were 3/5 of a human. They could not meddle. Okay, they didn't have no rights. So it was in 1824 there were constant attacks, and Julius Ashman appealed to the current president of the United States, James Monroe. okay, who sent money to fortify the territorial area of Monrovia, not Liberia, because Liberia was not a unitary country. Maryland was different from the Maryland Colonization Society, sending the people directly there. Sano, okay, let's see. Sano was called Mississippi. We changed Mississippi to Sano later on. Okay, so name change is simply historical recognition. But the problem that these two cannot agree on is because they're not putting it in historical context. For bringing all kinds of, they say, Monroe Doctrine. No, don't show education. Show the facts. And the facts was, okay, thank you. I don't want to take up much time. But I think those who are for, no point.
Thank you. You're right. Let's go to Providence, Rhode Island. 6726.
Too much question.
Your name and where you calling from? I said probably 204. Atlanta. Sandro Carney, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yeah, man. Good debate.
And turn up the volume a little bit.
The first thing, what I wanted to talk about is the context for even the American Colonization Society, right? As the other caller said, that was a private entity. It was backed by the government. It was not fully backed by the U.S. government, but it had support by like members of Congress and other permanent political leaders. And we shouldn't forget the context of why the slaves were brought back to Africa, right? The context by which the slaves were brought back to Africa, you should know that it was just after the Civil War, right? We have had many blacks that participated in the war. They had military skills, they had technical skills, right? Most of them became carpenters and they supported the Civil War. So those blacks were really, really skillful. Why ACS? We feel threatened. When the blacks produce here and they start having a lot of children, there's a possibility with the military skills and the technical skills, guess what? They can revolt, right? So these business people back, and they always put the relations in there because guess what? The same ship that brought the Bible to Africa was the same ship that was taking the slaves back, right? To America. So they use these relations jargon that is attached to these organizations and then use that to encourage and manipulate those black people. And because if someone is already against the wall where they fought in the Civil War, they came back after that war, they have nowhere to go, they are treated as animals. They were manipulated and they send them back. If you say, you are going to a place where you will have fertile soil, that you will get land, that you will be able to build your own house, who wouldn't go? I can tell you, all the countries
since 20 years before, after that.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
But that's what I'm trying to tell you. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. It was after the Civil War.
No, but
we're talking about pre-Civil War. We're talking about
1822.
1825.
Yeah. The Civil War was 1860 something.
Let the caller win and then we can respond and correct.
Let him learn. You will come. Go ahead, Sandro, conclude so we can.
Okay.
We'll take two more callers and then we'll be closing the phone line.
What I'm saying here is that if you look at most of the colonized countries in Africa, yeah. So if you look, hold on. I'm still talking though. If you really look at all the countries that were colonized in America, it's evolution. Nothing stays static. Name change is evolution and historical. Nothing stays static. All the colonized countries in Africa, they have changed their names. And I feel people like to say Liberia was not colonized, but it's American Colonization Society in Liberia. The symbolism of colonization is attached to Liberia more than any other colonized African country. Complete replica of everything. So name matters. Name matters. Name matters, and I agree that the name is changed and should be changed because the creation of the name was not the decision of the settlers. It was the decision of the power to be. All right, that's my comment.
Thank you. Josh Toto, let's go, Mr. Chairman. You have 1 minute.
Yes, Dennis. So, but let me say thanks to the panelists. I think we have it out of fruitful discussion tonight. The other point I want to make tonight, guys, having listened to the both for and against. But I only think on the whole issue that if at all we want to twist our identity, to say, yeah, we want for Liberia to reflect the African identity or our forefather, our ancestor, whatsoever, then there's a need for us to do that. We can shift the debate in that direction. But we should not shift the debate basically on because of slavery. That because Monrovia was need in favor of a person was a slave master or the person was a slave owner. Like one of the against there. We never knew. We have no historical document to prove that Jim Monroe household, the slave in household, and he was bound to slave and he ate future slave. We have no document to prove to that. Even today, why all the issues going on for slavery? Why up to now the issue of slavery going on? There are also prominent U.S. settlers, former leaders today. They are these going on. Nobody talking about it. You talk about George Washington, the founding father of this country here, who also the capital city of America bear his name. All historical documents. Nobody is talking about that. So if I all want to do us or change in Liberia, let it reflect our African identity. They say, yeah, Liberia has reached a point that Liberia need to be paired with other African countries in the region and want to go back to our identity. There the debate can shift that direction.
Thank you.
That's the point I want to make.
Thank you. Let me get this caller from international number.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Your name and where you calling from?
My name is Mohammed Salia Dukle. I'm calling from Sydney, Australia.
Welcome, Mohammed. Your question?
All right. Just quick comment I want to make. For people who making a wrong assumption that the ex-slaves that were brought back to Liberia, they were willing to do so, is very wrong. There's no history to prove that. Before they come into a place now called Liberia, there was serious debates going on what to do with the thousands and thousands of free black slaves that were in the midst of the white people. The debates about, look, what do we do with them? They're gonna infest our society. They're growing more and more. What do we do with them? The majority of the people were in favor of deportation, finding a place to dump them. If you read the book by Shehu, the early Negro deportation project, where he wrote in 1917, that's what he said. People were not interested in your humanity. They're interested in cleansing their environment. Then they brought them, they dumped them in the place they are. If they were interested in their humanity, they will not bring people like J. Hashmon to come and stay rule them, to manage them such that it can be livable and they can bring more to dump them there. That's the point I want. There are more other points to make, but I will stop here so far. So the name, to change the name is important. That's the beginning of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's take our last caller from 301 area code 1210. Your name and where you calling from?
Yeah, Dennis, it's me. It's Isaac Zawolo. I was just checking to make sure that I was having the right number. Isaac Zawolo. First of all, let me just apologize. I apologize. I couldn't make the show today. So let me just first thank my colleagues for and again. What? Yeah, I'm for the four side. So I'm saying I want to thank my colleagues for and again for the wonderful, well-spirited discussions. I think what we've done, we who are on the four side, what we've done lately is that we have given rise to, we have rebirthed a discussion that has long existed in Liberia. The issue about a change of name is not something that started in the 60s, and not something that started in the 80s or the 90s. It even started long before that time. when more and more indigenous people begin to acquire education, Western education, they begin to raise issues about their shrines, their cultural beliefs, their cultural practices, their names, and the rest of it. So this is not anything new. Well, one of the things I wanted to comment on here, first of all, is the fact that as an educator, I feel embarrassed. I feel embarrassed because I think as an educator, we have not done a very good job of dispelling the myth that was being told by A. Doris Banks Henry. I think a lot of those history that was written by Mrs. Henry has really, really remained ingrained in the minds of some of our people. But let me just say it here that I think Professor Jackie Saye has been repeatedly commenting and inviting people to do research about the history of Liberia. Research is not a lazy thing. You don't find it, you don't do research by just checking on Google and Wikipedia. But it's important to go back and read the history of Liberia and the establishment of the American Colonization Society. I don't want to be biased, but many people on the four sides have provided an accurate depiction of what transpired before and after the creation of the American Colonization Society, the purpose for which it was created, the purpose for which it was established. And so that's a very important thing for us to go back and understand. I was a little bit embarrassed by a discussion here that April 12th created division in our society because it began to revisit some of these very same issues. Mind you, April 12th provided an opportunity for the leveling of our society, albeit that things manifested in a way that we didn't expect it to go at the end of the day. But the importance, the significance of April 12th to the reconciliation and unification of Liberian people trumps any event or document ever written about Liberia, because it was a pivotal movement in our history of our country where a Flomo, a Yakaro, a Zawolo, a Jah, a Sie were sent to the Supreme Court and be respected and perform amicably, admirably. So let me just clarify that part. The second thing another thing I want to talk about is this argument that there are more important issues to focus on. Like I will conclude shortly. There are more important issues to focus on in Liberia. Some of the issues that people are asking us to focus on is the issue of TRC, or the World Crimes Court. Well, I don't think Liberian people are just one-minded people. I think we have the skills to be able to focus on more than one thing at a time. So I think we can engage this issue and at the same time engage the issue about TRC if that's what we want. But let me end here by saying that for some of us, I mean, the group supporting the name change is homogeneous, but it also has a heterogeneous component to it. And in that line, I want to say that the question here that why don't we talk about changing your orders? No, for me personally, as part of this group, I'm for the changing of the name of Greenville. I'm for the changing of the names of the street. I'm for the change of the national symbols. I'm changing for the schools like Matilla and Lipo. I'm also for us going back into history and denouncing certain documents like the Declaration of Independence and other documents that are written, because those documents were insulting, it was abusive, it violated our rights, and some of those actions taken by the people who today some of us want to glorify and continue to use their names on our important monuments. Some of the actions taken against them, taken by those people, desecrated our shrine. We talk about Benjamin J.K. Addison. You talk about Matilda Lipo, who is said to have killed hundreds of scores of indigenous men. A myth, a total lie. When history has proven that this particular individual did not even exist and could not even be at the place that it said she was at that time. So it's important for us to go back and read this history and not just make this argument because we heard it from A. Doris Banks Henry. A. Doris Banks Henry was a liar.
Thank you, Isaac.
He was a liar. And if you want to know why A. Doris Banks Henry wrote her books, I can come back another time to give you the history of Liberian education and why did she write the book she wrote, and why did she put those narratives in the book that she put in. She was paid to do, and there was a reason and purpose for that. But that's another history. That's another discussion we can have. So thank you. I know you are already telling me to end right there. I could go on more, but let me just end and say, guys, thank you very much for the discussion. I encourage all of us to read, and maybe sometime in the future we can come back and have this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That will conclude our callers. We are enough. Mr. Sie.
Mr. Jaya, thank you. And folks in cyberspace, we want to say thank you for being part of this conversation. We will now come back to our debaters here. Gentlemen, you're listening to the callers. Some of them ask questions, some of them make comments. We will assign 4 minutes on each side for response. Let's start with the against side.
Okay.
You're on mute, James.
You're on mute, James. Correctly.
Oh, okay. So there are 4 minutes and we have 3, so that's just about a minute. I want to say that we again need to reconsider this. Africans are known for hospitality. When strangers come, we treat them nicely, and so we don't tend to differentiate or discriminate against strangers. We are trained and brought up in a way as to be hospitable to visitors. Even in my own town in Bon County, Banjul Slumber, that's a 100% Pella town. A single Mandingo family went there, and they were very respected and accommodated. And there where my grandfather came from. And some of the Pella people in the town gave names to their children after Mandingo Muslim names. So we are one. I just want to say that it's no harm. You can't tell me that it's bad for those guilds and minors in Nema County who are bearing Mandingo names should be blamed for that, should be criticized for that. The settlers came in Liberia, they settled right in Monrovia there. Again, Monrovia is a small portion of Liberia, is less than 1%, it's less than 0.01%. I mean, it just, if you have $100, Monrovia and Liberia is $100, Monrovia is less than 1 cent. So why are we arguing over that? You have the whole of the $100. If you want to name places, go to name other places, build your places and name them. The settlers came and settled in that place. It's not true that the ACS were all about whites. The women majority of those controlling, ruling the Commonwealth of Liberia were blacks. Joseph Jenkins Roberts, for example, was a black man. He was a lieutenant governor. Okay, so we need to focus on the main issues. And I don't want to eat the time from my fellows, but we're talking about the wind of change. The wind of change you're talking about in America has not led to any call for the change of the name of the District of Washington. That's the name of the capital city. The wind of change has been solely about slave traders who were being honored because they were slave traders. Monroe was not honored in Liberia because he was a slave owner. He was honored because he did good to the settlers, and they praised him and commended him for that. At one point, they said the ACS has been noble and perfectly in good faith in honoring their pledges to us. Let me stop there because Joel and Percy have to come in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I listened to this keenly and I was not too happy at all. I am at a sad place because what I could hear was dog whistling and nativism and xenophobic statements here. When people are talking about Liberia as if to say the settlers have no part of that. You know, I remember 1980 where I was pulled aside because my name was Williamson. Are you a Liberian? Your name Williamson or you Congo? Look, you're from Sano. I'm from Lexington, Sano County. No one is more Liberian than me. Because the idea that because of a need, because of what my need is, somehow I'm not attached to this heritage or this indigenous part of Liberia. When indigenous really mean people born there and whatever. We all are indigenous. And say American Liberians are descendants of the settlers have no right or have no ownership to this place. I mean, it seems from we should change Greenville, we should change Barclayville, we should forget our history. Because to talk about Liberia history is to include the settlers. Now, to not remember our triple heritage and talk to say that Liberians today, you know, when people talking about we need to change this, we need to change the symbol. 1980 came when it was a time for 10 years. Maybe that was an opportunity. Well, I wonder, we've been talking about changing the name for since 1970. I wonder why it hasn't been changed. Because maybe when we sit down, we realize a historical history is attached to this. This is part of our history that we're trying to ignore. The American Liberians are part of this, or the settlers' descendants are part of this history we're discussing. Do you want to just write them out and say everything has to have an additional thing? I heard a lot of dog whistling, or what we call dog whistling, yeah, and xenophobic ideas, if to say, because one name, because I go back with the name change. In 1980, people got killed because of just their name. People got killed because of that. Because, oh, this is a man, yeah, his name is this, his name is that. And that is where we are going with this kind of things. You know, I still think my position would be against, because I think it is divisive. As we push with it, it hasn't happened for over 50 years because of the very divisive mechanism that it is. We need something that can unite us. Let me finish with this. I don't think the American colonization was.
Of your other
American colonization was a sin. So let me close with this. I agree that American colonization was not a sin. I'm not speaking on their behalf, but I'm talking about the name change of Liberia, and I want Monrovia. And I want to keep the argument there rather than us bringing in other things. The name change based on whether it's slavery, because I've heard a lot of things come in here that is just not in the best interest of Liberia. I rest my case.
You have gone 6 minutes now. So Percy.
Percy,
you may use all your time. So Percy, go ahead. Just quickly.
They have the same 4 minutes?
No, the entire group have 4 minutes, but you use 6 minutes. So go ahead with
whoa. This is already. Well, I mean, and this is a discussion, like I said, that needs to be had, right? It's very important. It cuts to the heart of who we are as a people and where we want to go as a country. So it's very important. Having said that, I've listened to the various callers and the panelists here. But what I actually want to, for people to come away from this conversation with, it's not just the passion, right? You have to examine the history, right? I mean, go do a little bit more. Go beyond the fact that you just want a name change. Do a little more digging in that. Don't just be shallow about it. It's going to help the conversation. It's going to enrich the conversation, because you'll be speaking from a point of fact, right? You'll be having an understanding of what the issues are surrounding this whole thing. And secondly, I just want to a couple of the callers. I can't respond to everybody, but the issue of the ACS, I want to make people understand the ACS was not a monolithic organization. Most of the time, people talk about it as though it was a monolithic organization and people just wanted to expel people from here. The ACS was a multiplicity of people coming together from different ideology. People from New England had a different idea about what they wanted to do with Black Americans versus people in the South. Most of the time you hear about these things, people talk most of the Southern side of it, right? The planters, the Southern politicians and whatnot. Those are the people that they usually tout. They don't tout the Finleys of the world and the Mills of the world, who actually were the origin, who actually took the idea to Washington, right? They don't talk about these guys and who they were. We don't dig a little deeper than that. Secondly, if you really want to fix country, what places that they have really meant to fix it, mend fences are, people do that around shared value, right? They don't do it around the fact that, okay, we want to erase this guy from the entire country that he founded, right? We want to get rid of him because certain things are not right with us, right? We don't like the way the country was started. I mean, instead of that, people do share value, like in America where we all live, right? People clamor around the things that bring them together the most, the things that they share in common. And last but not the least, Monrovia was named colonial time. I hear people keep saying it was 1839 was when the country we have became a Commonwealth. Prior to 1829, everything was in the colonial time. It was 1825 when Monrovia became Monrovia, when the settlers named the colony after that.
Your colleagues,
So
Squander, you have 4 minutes. We are just giving you 1 minute and you've since passed that. So sorry to hold you there. Let's come to the four side. Gentlemen, remember you have 4 minutes to respond to the caller. So be gracious to each other and share it evenly. You can go, any of you.
Okay, gentlemen, thanks so much. Look, here's the thing. I know we all come from different perspectives on this issue, and we all share the same common interest, which is the nation called Liberia. But I don't want this whole discussion or debate should be lost in translation. Look, the thing about name and heritage of that name is very, very important. It's important to me to the point that I'm known as Prince William, but I'm redefining myself because I have ancestors from the Grobo, the Crew, and the Lopata who have contributed to my family heritage. So I'm redefining myself now to even change my name from Williams to one of my ancestors' names, so that my ancestor spirit can be honored, the heritage can be reawakened. So the reason it is necessary that we change Liberia name is for our national identity and our heritage, that our founding father came on this land to detach himself from evil men who carry or perpetrated injustice to their children and their ancestors. So for us to name that name after one of those perpetrators is contradiction. And to make that contradiction right, it is incumbent upon us, who are the next generation. I.e., example, the United States of America. At the founding of the United States of America, it was not a perfect formation, but it is evolving and is changing. Today, the United States is changing most of its bases that have Confederate general names. Even Percy mentioned one time in the last debate, why did Alabama changing its flag right now? It has been a discussion that has been going on for 50 years. Alabama just decided to make that change today. So it's the time, so it's a need. So I think we should do our ancestral justice, because they were on a whole lot of stress and endurance. They made decisions, they accepted things at the time just for the survival. It is incumbent upon us now to do them right, to set things right on course, because there is a lot in a name. A name means a whole lot. That's why in the Bible, Jacob's name was changed to Israel, and from the time Jacob's name was changed to Israel, Jacob's life changed. We cannot carry an identity that is associated with man who subjugated our ancestors into slavery, who had no regard, who was against coexistence of black and white, who was a white supremacy in effect. So I want to thank you all so much, and I appreciate it, and I allow my colleague Emmanuel to add on what I just said.
After 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Your 4 minutes, you squander 3. So, gentlemen, go ahead, Imara. Time. You unmute, Imara. You unmute, Imara. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, I just want to reflect on a few things. How many? I have the moral argument. People say you don't have the moral. I have the moral argument. I have the right to have the moral argument. I want to reflect, how many slaves did Monroe have, and how many did he free? He only freed one slave when he was dying in his bed. Second point, he never sent a single free slave to Liberia. The third point, how can we teach Liberian kids about James Monroe, like a great freedom fighter, in line with Nelson Mandela?
No one's doing that.
Okay, another thing is that how Monroe and the ACS never advocated for the freedom of blacks right in America. And I want to think about it. Okay. Now, we claim Liberia is the center of Pan-Africanism, which Ghana is going ahead now. But we still want to stick back to the old slave doctrine. Okay, now, don't you think that honoring James Monroe, a slave owner, contradicts our value by the amount of slaves that you have? And by the way,
team, your time is out. We are allotting you 1 extra minute.
Okay,
maybe you should
by the
give
way,
that to Vasiki so he can have the
Vasiki,
opportunity.
go ahead, Vasiki. Yeah, thank you.
All right, 5 minutes now, right?
Yeah.
All right, here I just want to point out 3 things. James Monroe was not a saint. If you own a slave, Slaves used to be in slave plantation. Maybe there are two different kinds of slaves. Like Malcolm X used to say the house Negro and the few Negro. The few Negro used to be in the plantation. The house Negro used to be in the slave master's home to serve him there. That's point number one. Number two here is that when people say we're trying to discriminate against the settlers, that is disingenuous. The fact of the matter, I try to refer to the settlers as our brothers and sisters that came back home. Before they went to America, they were African. So if you come back home, you try to blend into the culture. You try to blend two different cultures. I appreciate the fact that Mr. Williamson keeps referring to the triple heritage. That is great. Okay? That triple heritage, in fact, was not respected. If it was respected, Natives were not going to be considered second-class citizens in their own country. So after more than 200 years, in Liberia, we all should be thinking of ourselves today as Africans, not America's stepchildren. We're no longer America's stepchildren. So we must accept our African identity 100%. And the last thing I want to say.
Yeah, that 1 minute grace period is over, but I'll conclude that. If we waste time, we'll
continue. All right. So basically, whether you are a settler descendant or you're Native Africans, we are all the same people today.
Thank you.
We all should be looking up to Africa as our identity, nothing less, nothing more.
Thank you again, folks in cyberspace. You have been watching Focus on Liberia, and we are having a debate on the name Monrovia, whether or not it should be changed. Gentlemen, I think you have been doing a great job. We are coming to the end of this debate. The last thing we're going to do now is to get your closing statement, and in this section, we will allow the meanings individually. Dennis, what do you think? One or two?
1 minute for.
Yeah, I have to go pick up my children from somewhere. Can you give me the opportunity to make my closing remark before I leave?
Please. Yeah, we can do that. And so, Vasiki, since you want to go quickly, we will give you the opportunity. You have 1 minute to close.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Focus on Liberia for affording us the opportunity to sit here today and discuss this. And the fact that for both sides, I think we've been very respectful of each other. We are all friends. We are all Liberians. James Lassa is my good friend. So the fact that we sit here today and discuss without insulting each other, and we did it in a very civilized manner, I really appreciate that. I know Brother Williamson, he seems to be a little angry, but let's take the anger out of the discussion here. Let's be reasonable and let's be sober-minded when we are discussing this issue. And other than that, I just thank everybody for coming here tonight. It's been a great program, great discussion. Thank you so much. God bless.
All right. Thank you. Let's come to Emmanuel, the fourth side, to close. 1 minute.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Well, I'm thankful for you guys for hosting us and all the participants. I'm just going to talk about Brother Williamson when he talked about the three different heritage. James Monroe, Thomas Jefferson is not part of our Black Pan-Africanist heritage. And we got to reflect on that and see whether how it fit in our heritage. And also, too, I want to give Liberian people the chance to reflect on the true identity of themselves. It's not fighting against a certain group of people. Because, for example, now, there are sometimes called robber sports, and after President Roberts, we keep those things. But James Monroe and most of the people of the ACS were not Africans. They were colonialists, quote-unquote colonialists, and also we talk about Monroe Doctrine, talking about democracy, but the same Monroe Doctrine we talk about the Black people in America, they don't have democracy. All the Monroe Doctrine to preach on the 1960s. So we don't even go that route. We got to define our own future and create our own future collectively. That's what I want to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Prince Williams, who's going to change his name, and I will hold you to your word. I want to see that change on Facebook. I think you did that. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Focus on Africa. focus on Liberia. And thank you very much, gentlemen. Those of you guys who are against and my colleagues who are for, thank you so much for this wonderful interaction. I want to thank you very much. I want to say that for those of you guys who are against, I understand. I hear your argument. It makes a whole lot of sense. I appreciate your take. And I want you to know that it is all coming out of fear. It is coming out of apprehension, the resistance to change. But every nation is going through an evolution of change. And one of that evolution of change has to do with its identity. Its identity is one of the crucial things. Liberia is one of that nations. And we should seize the opportunity. We should not allow fear or prejudice or tribalism to refrain us from being the nation that our founding father intended it to be. When I'm talking about our founding father, I'm not talking about our step founding father, the ACS. I'm talking about our original founding father that settled us, who braved the sea to come here to establish a land, free land, where they can be free from slavery and prejudice. I want to thank you, focus on Liberia for that. Focus on Liberia. Thanks for your time. And gentlemen, let me say to you, Martha Garrish made this argument to the leadership of Liberia back then, and they had this in debate. So it is not a new debate, and we should not refrain from it, not have a discussion. If anything is negative, have a negative connotation and associated negatively with anything that will cast a shadow on our nation, there's no reason why we shouldn't change it. Whether it be by Buchanan, whether it be by Sano, whether it be by my hometown, Barclayville, whether it be anywhere, if any of those people associate on it with negative connotation, we should make that change because it is necessary to reflect for our generation. Thank you very much. God bless you all, and thank you very much for time.
Thank you. And let's start with Mr. Joel Williamson. I'm sure I don't know if he's standing. Mr. Williamson, you have a minute or closer.
First of all, let me say a big thank you to one of my favorite programs, Focus on Liberia. The hosts are very mind-teasing. But like I say, when I discuss Liberia, I like to go back to Professor Elwood Dunn, who talked about our triple heritage. I heard one of my professors from Cottonville who taught me years back, Joe Baba, talking about changing everything and making Liberia some indigenous way. I think the issue here on Monrovia is a great discussion. I will leave this discussion being firmly opposed to changing the name. I want us to keep our triple heritage. Our triple heritage has nothing to do with Juhidi Ashman and Monroe. It has to do with my grandfathers, who it has to do with my grandmother, who was a warrior daughter. It has to do with the Islamic people. When people say, let's Christianize Liberia, we have to think about our triple heritage: Islam, the traditionalists, and the settlers. Those three groups make up Liberia. Trying to erase one will not be a complete thing. Let us keep that in mind when we want to make national policies. We can't be making national policy against, we're trying to deface one group. The argument for is understandable, but I leave this here not persuaded. I am for against changing the name. I want to thank all of you because I think you made your point.
Thank you. Percy?
Thank you, gentlemen, for the show, for the discussion. I really like this kind of discussion. I think it is important. I think we should, outside of the other social and economic issue that is unfolding in the country, this is very important to be discussing. Like Mr. Williamson said, right? The issue of Monrovia is a very touchy one. And Monrovia is if not the original settlement, is probably one of the original settlements, right? And Again, if we really want to reconcile with people, if you just take the capital, if the argument is Monrovia is the capital, you can have a capital name after. So just strip Monrovia of the capital city status, build another capital. That's another solution to the problem. I'm just suggesting. But the issue is Monrovia, right, is a very, very important place to the settlers, right? And the fact that you want that is signal out, right? Is the fact that we just signal out Monrovia and everywhere else you remain the same, but just Monrovia speak volume about the people that even wanting to change the name, right? So if you want to do this thing, let's do it holistically. That's what I said. If you want to make an argument about slavery, let's look at slavery holistically. If you want to change, if you want to fundamentally fix Liberia, let's look at everything holistically. You can't cherry pick, right? We can't do the cherry picking. You're gonna offend me, right? People who ancestors fought for that place and earned the right to be there. You offend them also. You have to consider that. In diversity, our diversity, we should build a country based on diversity and share value. It can be, tunnel vision. But thank you guys for the conversation.
Thank you, Percy. Lazar?
Yeah, thank you. Well, look, I'll have to conclude this way. Monrovia, again, is less than 0.001% of Liberia. If you had $100, Monrovia would be less than 1 cent. You have the entire country. You have Banga, you have Zedu, you have Vonjama, you have Zozo, you have a whole lot of other places. You could go to build and give them names that you want. Leave that small little place. Other than that, it will be a huge work to do. Kidman County is a foreign name, it's a Western name. Maryland, Western name. Cestus is a Western name. Kavala River, Western name. St. Paul River, Western name. Farmington River, St. John River, Western name. Montserrat County, Montserrat is a Western name. Just everywhere you go. So if you're going to do something, let it be, like the brother said, it may have to be holistic and quite sincere and inclusive. It should be uniting. So we need to take a step forward. I agree that it can be difficult for some to live with their bitter history, with their sad memory. And so they may want to change it and make it look like they didn't have that history before. If you hate the fact that you are associated with a former slaveholder, well, I'm sorry, that is not good. But that's the fact. That's what happened. And our former slaveholder happened to have been too good to the settlers that came and they decided to honor him. Don't change it. You don't know anything more about our former slaveholder than the settlers who were living and wrote a lot, and they were able to express their anger sufficiently, and yet they were able to honor him as being separate and honorable and a distinguished fellow. So let us go and unite, because this is divisive. Let us focus on reconciliation, TRC implementation, political decentralization, the healthcare system to improve that, and to fight against gender-based violence and other such issues. Thank you very much. It's been a great time, and I'm very proud of Focus on Liberia. I encourage all of those who are listening and those on the show, if you can, in whatever way you can help to advance the cause of this platform, kindly do so. And I myself will be there to do the little I can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming to the conversation. Ase Zavlo could not have said it better about your participation here. He said you guys have been very knowledgeable and it's a spirited debate. Vasiki said the debate was done with almost respect, except that he said Mr. Wolensing was getting angry. I don't think Mr. Wolensing was getting angry. He was just bringing his passion. I've listened to him several times. I don't see anger in him. We want to appreciate you here at Focus on Liberia. We try to do things differently here, and so when we bring our guests, we want them to also follow our tradition, and you guys have done it honorably. But I got something for you. I'm from a place in Liberia called Sastan. If that name, Sastan, did not reflect anything in my being and in the being of everybody from Sastan, my plane ticket will have been bought right now. Despite the corona, I will be on my way to start the campaign to change that name. Sastan comes from the word sassy, spirited human beings. That's who we have been as a people. The late Juad Nimlin, who fought, is from Sastan, or was from Sastan, if you like. So I love the name Sastan. I'm going to keep it because the people who gave Sastan that name reflected our identity. And so we're going to keep that name. But for Monrovia, it represents the slave master. And I want to see that change. That's what I have for you. Mr. Jah.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Thank you for the spirited debate. We want to say thank you to our viewers, those who gave comments, those who call in. We really appreciate that. Without you, we won't be here. So thank you and continue to support us here as we endeavor to educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. This July 26th, we are going to be having a virtual Independence Day program right here on Focus on Liberia. For this year, the national orator that we have picked is Dr. Patricia Jabber Wesley, a Liberian poet and professor of creative writing right here in the States. We'll also be having some speakers, 5 minutes each, on the topic, reassessing Liberia's independence. Are we politically free? When it comes to art and culture, are we free? Economic freedom and all the 9 years. You're going to be listening to those speakers. You're going to be having some cultural performances and speeches, all right here, Focus on Liberia, a virtual July 26th Independence Day, starting 2 p.m. on Sunday. Please visit us and be a part of it. Until then, from all of us here at Focus on Liberia, my name is Dennis Johnson. Good night and God bless you. Don't forget, coronavirus is real. Do all you can to protect your brother, protect yourself, and also protect others. We will now leave you with this song, We Are All Liberians. If there's nothing, someone told me that even during the war, nobody, no tribe, no ethnic group wanted to secede from Liberia. We all were still living, even though we're killing each other, we're still proud to be identified as Liberians. So we want to leave you with that message. Whether you want the name changed or not, whether you want Dudwicken to be named Jabberville or still be Dudwicken, whether you want Southtown or whether you want Harper to go back to Buledro, we still say we are all Liberians. Good night and may God richly bless you.
We are Liberians.